Hello and welcome to this next story of my life, which is going to be a little bit different to the other ones that I've told here today. Today is Sunday the 25th of January, and I thought yesterday I trolled a female lawyer in Australia for some time, and I'm going to put up a post on Manbook about that, just to demonstrate what pathological liars women are, and to demonstrate just a pure level of hatred that women have for men today in the West. I mean, this woman is just a pure man-hater, there's no question about it. She's a liar, pathological liar, she's a hypocrite, and she makes it quite clear in the statements that she makes. But part of the trolling and part of the conversation was the history of how I came to be divorced and the history of my marriage with Jennifer. I put some of that up on the Twitter posts, and of course all this stuff is fairly well known. It's easy to go read and find and all the rest of it. But I thought I would just stick it up in a bit of a summary of the story of my life, because Jennifer had a very long history of being a very nasty and vicious woman, attempting to demean me and put me down in front of my peers and all the rest of it. And she would not do what she made a vow to do when we married, which was honour thy husband, right? So I'll just go over some of that. And one of the interesting things, my female family law lawyer from Watts McRae in Sydney, and I'll leave the link under this video, and I'll also put her details up on Manbook. This is a man-hating bitch called Jacqueline Vincent. And when I summarised, of course, when you hire a lawyer and you're going to go through a hostile divorce, you have to write a summary of the period of the marriage, leading up to the marriage and the period of the marriage, so that the lawyer can understand the position that you are in with a hostile bitch for a wife. And so I wrote out my summary and I sent it to Jacqueline Vincent. And her comment back to me was, "You were stupid not to divorce this woman years ago." And I said, "Well, that's really interesting, Jacqueline, because I took a marriage vow, and us men, we take our vows seriously. So your position is, I'm stupid for taking my vow seriously." And she said, "Yes." Okay, this is what women think about the marriage vow, right? Women think about the marriage vow, you're stupid if you keep it if it's not working out for you, right? If it's not working out the way that you want, then you should just get divorced because your vow means nothing. That's actually the position that women take. And it's very well known that women take this position. It's not like women will say to me, you're a you're a woman hater for saying these things. Really, I'm a woman hater for pointing out that women initiate 90% of divorces, or are the cause of 90% of divorces, according to female researchers. That makes me a woman hater, right? What about the hatred of the men to be destroying their families in the first place, right? This is how women think. Women are just pathological liars. If there is one thing I have learned since my fave number one started talking about just what pathological liars women are in 2010, if there's one message I would give to young men that will save you a great deal of time and trouble across your life, it is this: never, ever, ever, not under any circumstances, should you ever believe anything a woman says to you. Not ever. Doesn't matter who she is. Do not ever believe anything a woman says to you, because they are such pathological liars. And just to digress a bit, if you want the proof of just what a bunch of pathological liars women are, look around and notice that there is not one woman, not even one, okay? There is not even one woman, not one, and I want to emphasize this, so I'll say it again. There is not one woman in the entire freaking Western world, right? I can't find one. Not one woman in the entire freaking Western world of any note at all who says women should be punished for perjury. There isn't one, right? Get that. If you're a young man, my audience is young men 16 to 30, that's who I'm talking to. If you're a young man 16 to 30, please, for your benefit, for the sake of your life, get through your head that there is not a single woman, not even one, in the entire Western world of any note at all who says women should be held accountable for perjury. And the reason there isn't one is women know they are pathological lies. They know it. That's why women don't trust women, right? When a woman needs a loan, she goes to a man because women know that women can't be trusted. I remember meeting this woman. I'd met her twice, right? Just socially, I'd met her twice. On the second time she met me, and she had lots of female friends. She was in her 20s. And the second time she met me, she asked me if she could borrow €1,000 because €1,000 because her car needed a repair. And I said to her, you know, lots of women your own age, plenty of them have got jobs. Why don't you borrow €1,000 off one of your girlfriends? And she looked at me and laughed and she said, women never repay their loans. And I looked at her and I said, you're asking me for a loan and you just said to me, women never repay their loans? Do you think that I'm that stupid? And she went, oops. And she literally went, oops. As in, oh, I'm not supposed to tell this man women never repay their loans because I'm a woman and I just asked him for a loan. She was so stupid. I mean, she wasn't a very smart woman, but she was so stupid that she told me to my face, women never repay their loans within 2 minutes of asking me for a loan, right? Women know that they are liars. Women know that they won't repay loans. Women know that they won't help each other out in need for the most part. Right? Women know this, okay? That's why when a woman needs something, she goes to a man. And she lies to the man and she manipulates the man into giving her what she wants. This is how women get what they want in life. They go to a man, they lie to him, they manipulate him in whatever way they can find to manipulate him in order to get what they want, okay? This is what women do. And you can't blame them for it. It's like blaming a dog for barking. A dog barks. That's how a dog gets attention, right? A dog growls to warn. A dog barks for attention. That's what dogs do. A woman needs some resources from somewhere. She goes to a man and she lies to him or she manipulates him in some way, shape or form to get the resources that she wants through the man. You know, in a, quote, democratic society, that's called voting, right? The women go to the men and say, whichever man promises us the most free stuff by stealing it from other men, that's who gets our vote. That's what, quote, democracy is. This is why when women get the vote, the size of the government explodes by about 10 times, an order of magnitude. So whether it's 8 times or 15 times, it doesn't really matter. But when women get the vote, the size of the government increases by an order of magnitude so that the government can steal from the men on behalf of the woman to give the resources of the men to the women through the government administration. That's what giving women the vote did. And it happened everywhere women have the vote. You have a welfare state everywhere, because the women say the only people who get our vote, you know, the vast majority of women say the only people who get our vote, male or female, are the ones who promise to give us free stuff in return for our vote. And because free stuff means stealing it from the men and giving it to the women. That's what free stuff means. You know, like free healthcare. Everyone shall have free healthcare, which is going to cost you $5,000 a year if you're a taxpayer, right? But the women, the poorest people as a large group in society are the single mothers because they got rid of the men. Nobody looks at the men, the fathers who are living on the street. They're poorer still, but they don't get welfare, right? They're just living on the street. So, you know, this is if there is one thing that I teach you young men that is so critical and so important to your life, is when a woman speaks, just don't even entertain Don't even entertain the thought that she might be telling you the truth. Listen to what she says by all means, and then go see it for yourself. If she says the sky is blue, go check it for yourself, because it might have turned green overnight, right? The number one thing that I would teach young men is never, ever, ever, ever believe anything somebody who is female tells you. Just don't believe it, because there are none of them who say that committing perjury is a crime and the woman should be prosecuted. None of them. And so if a woman says, well, perjury's okay, but you should trust me what I say, really? Perjury's okay, you should trust what I say? No, don't do that. That would be really stupid, okay? So that's just a small digression. So, if perjury's okay, you cannot put any stock in a vow that a woman makes, right? It just doesn't make any sense at all. Perjury's okay, but you should believe my vows. Really. If you buy that, pity the fool. The old Mr. T saying, I pity the fool who believes that, okay? So anyhow, I had to do this summary. And, Jacqueline Vincent said you were very stupid not, to divorce this woman years ago. So I'm going to go over some of that summary for you. So, one of these things this woman, Amy, said to me was, you benefited from the marriage, as if to say, just because you benefited from the marriage means you should pay your wife all this money, right? And I said, my wife benefited from the marriage far more than I did. Meaning, shouldn't she be paying me then, if we're all equal around here? So the backstory is, and I'll tell you the backstory is Jennifer's little brother Michael came to my school when he was 12 years old. He was very sickly. He was an asthmatic kid, and the family had moved because of asthma. He was also socially awkward. I saw him being bullied in the schoolyard, and I went and befriended him, and he seemed to be a nice kid. So I let the bullies know that he was under my wing now. So apart from my good nature, Michael Toll, Jennifer's little brother, would have been bullied at school for years. But I was the captain of my football team and captain of my cricket team, and I was a popular kid. And I was one of the best fighters, if not the best fighter around. And if I said, leave this kid alone, nobody bothered the kid, right? And I protected people from young kids, sickly, weakly young kids like Michael Toll was. I protected sickly, weakly young kids from bullies, as I always have, as is recorded from my first day of school, which is also on this audio series, okay? So that's how I came to know the Toll family, and of course Jennifer was Michael's older sister. And Jennifer was also the best friend of the first girl who I, quote, fell in love with as a 12-year-old. There was a girl called Susan now, and Susan was the first girl that I had a crush on as a 12-year-old. And of course, when you have your first crush as a 12-year-old, it occurs as quite a phenomenal kind of experience. And that's all great. So Jennifer was Susan's best friend, and Susan was and Jennifer looked so alike that they often passed off as each other's sister. So Susan was the girl that during my teenage years I would have liked to have married, and but she said no, and that's her, as is her right. And Jennifer was the girl I finished up marrying, and I rather think that was contrived between the two of them as well, because Susan would invite me to things and Jennifer would just happen to be there, right? But when Jennifer was 16, it turned out, I found out many, many years later, she got herself pregnant deliberately to her boyfriend. And the reason she got herself deliberately pregnant to her boyfriend was because she wanted to get away from what she perceived was her domineering mother. Perhaps her domineering mother was trying to keep her away from boys so she wouldn't get pregnant, right? As is often the case with girls who are around 16 years of age. The mother does not want the girl to go get herself pregnant, of which 16-year-old girls are perfectly capable of getting themselves pregnant. They know how to get pregnant. They know when they can get pregnant. And there's no shortage of men who are quite willing to make her pregnant, right? So at 16, Jennifer deliberately, with malice of forethought, got pregnant. Okay, now the moral vacuum that Jennifer is, having done that. When she told me this 15 years into our marriage, right, she didn't tell me that she'd done this until 25 years later. I think it was about 2005 or 2004, something like that she finally confessed that she had deliberately gotten pregnant when she was 16 in order to get away from her mother. And I looked at her and went, I cannot believe you did that. Said, you have told Kristen her whole life, Kristen was the baby that ensued, you have told Kristen her whole life that she was an accident, right? And she has accepted that she was not a wanted child, that she was accidentally born, but once she was conceived, she was wanted. What you are telling her now, because she is going to find out, because she has to be told, what you are telling her now is she was the result of a malicious, vicious deception and manipulation. That's what she is, right? Her existence is the result of a malicious, vicious deception and manipulation. And she's now going to have to come to terms with that is who she is. That's how she came to be in the world, right? She's going to have to come to terms with that. And I don't know how Kristen came to terms with that, or even if she did come to terms with that. But Kristen Robinson, she has to come to terms with that. What she is the result of a vicious, malicious deception and manipulation. So, of course, I was stunned to the core when Jennifer told me this. So Jennifer had done this deliberately and then lied to everyone. I called Susan. I emailed Susan, and I asked Susan, as Jennifer's best friend, did she ever admit to you that she got pregnant deliberately? And Susan said, no, she never admitted that to me. So I have no reason to disbelieve Susan on that point, apart from the fact that Susan too is, of course, a pathological liar, being a woman, right? So Jennifer deliberately had this baby, deliberately got pregnant, deliberately had this baby, and then lied to everybody about being the victim of the older boyfriend when she had indeed been the predator in that situation. That just thoroughly disgusted me, right? But I didn't know that was the situation at the time. And I told her father, and I asked her father, did you know that she did this? And he said no. And I said, well, if I'd have known something like that, I never would have married your daughter. And he said, no, that would be right. And also, at the end of that first marriage that she had, she claimed to me that she was divorced when she wasn't actually divorced. Because in the divorce process, one of the documents that's mandatory to be handed over to the other side is, okay, well, where's your divorce certificate? Okay. And Jennifer's side said, I'm not going to give you the divorce certificate. And I said, well, why not? Why are you withholding this divorce certificate? What's on the divorce certificate that you don't want me to see? So I got my solicitor, of course, to go down to the Registry of Births, Deaths and Marriages, because the Registry of Births, Deaths and Marriages is right there in Sydney. I mean, it's like, we're not going to show you the divorce certificate, but all you have to do is go over to the Registry of Births, Deaths and Marriages and get a copy, right? So, of course, we got a copy, and of course, Jennifer was not divorced when we started our relationship. Now, this is despite the fact that one of the first questions I asked her, because I knew her husband, small town, and he was not a particularly nice guy. He did get into a few fights around town, and he was known to be a bit of a bad boy. So, Jennifer got the bad boy and got herself pregnant to a bad boy, as her husband was at the time. And her boyfriend was 22 and she was 16. So you've got the picture, right? She's got a bad boyfriend who's 6 years older than her at 16 years of age. That's the picture. That happens plenty of times. So they were not divorced. And because I knew the man and knew he was a bit of a bad boy and all the rest of it, I wanted nothing to do with Jennifer on a more personal level unless the divorce was final. And she said, yes, the divorce is final. I said, okay, I'll take your word at that. So here we are all these years later, 23 years later, and surprise, surprise, the divorce was not final. And I also said to Bill, did you realise that Jennifer lied to you and Irene when Jennifer and I started dating? She lied to me and told me the divorce was final, but I also recall her telling you the divorce was final, and so Jennifer lied to you and Irene over her divorce being final. Are you aware that she lied to you about this? And he said no. And I said, well, if I'd have known that your daughter was lying to me about her divorce being final, lying to me about how Kristen came to be, I would never have married your daughter. And Bill said, and that would have been the right thing to do, right? Obviously, a woman who is that dishonest, no man should marry, right? And any man who does marry her is a complete freaking idiot. Now, moving right along, Jennifer and I, of course, went to some of the same Bible study classes. Susan and I were in the same Bible study classes as we were teenagers. I was Christian and we went to Bible study. And Jennifer professed very loudly her Christian religion, and all through our courtship we went to church in various places. When we lived in our house in Seven Hills, we attended church every weekend I attended church every weekend I was there. I was often not there because I was working, travelling. And we attended church and we went through the ministerial things, the training for being married and all the rest of it that you do with your church. I was indeed a Sunday school teacher for a year at that church. So Jennifer professed very loudly, very strenuously how Christian a woman she was. And we did, when I was in town, we went to Bible study once a week, and we had our circle of friends in our Bible study groups. And Jennifer was very, very strenuously professing her Christianity. So we married in the church right across the road from the house. And I do mean right across the road. I mean it is opposite on the road in Wagga, the church that we were married in. We were married by her former minister, okay, and she very loudly professed her Christianity all the way through, took her marriage vows, etc., etc., okay. The reason we got married was I had decided that I was interested in having children. I'd made that decision a little while before, and with the decision by me that yes, I was interested in having my own children, being Christian, I decided that to do that, I would only do that within the sanctity of marriage, right? So that's why I asked Jennifer to marry me, because we had full intentions of having children. Now, duly, Josephine came along, and duly, Joshua came along. Just a flip forward, Jennifer denied paternity test for both Joshua Marguerite and Joshua John and Josephine Marguerite. She denied paternity test for that. When they are 16 and 14, and of course 16 and 14 is well old enough to understand that a paternity test is a normal required procedure in order to claim money from the father, because women are pathological liars and they lie so pathologically about paternity, right? Which is why we now have paternity tests, because a woman's word is not worth anything when it comes to claiming paternity. So what is the one and only reason that a woman would deny a paternity test on a child for the father in order to gain access to the child support money, which would then be due from the father? The one and only possible reason is she was having sex with other men at the time that children were conceived, and she knew that there was some level of possibility, however small or great, that the child was not the child of the father that she claimed, right? That is the one and only reason that you would deny a paternity test to children who are 16 and 14 years old, who understand that it's a mandatory procedure in order to gain access to child support, right? So Jennifer refused to allow a paternity test for what she was now claiming were her two children, okay? Not my children, they're her children, right? Okay, well, if they're your children, you must pay for them. Okay, that's it. That's pretty simple. Your children, you pay for them. The state's children, the state should pay for them. If they are my children, I get to say what happens. If they are my children, I'm authorised and responsible to say what happens with these children. If I don't have the authority over my word alone to say what happens with these children, they're not my children, right? They're somebody else's children. They're certainly not mine. So I absolutely refused to pay 1 cent for children that I don't have the authority over. Okay? If I'm not the authority over these children, then whoever is the authority over these children should pay for them. Pretty simple. So right after Joshua came along, Jennifer announces that I'm not a Christian anymore and I don't need a bunch of Christians to tell me how to run my life. She says this to me as a Christian husband. And I say, well, excuse me, but you took a vow, right? Now, as far as I'm concerned, Jennifer took a vow to, before God, in a church that she went to as a child, before all her family and friends, she took vows of marriage, right? As far as I'm concerned. And as far as I'm concerned, the second she broke that vow was the end of any claim she had to anything that I owned, right? And you, as a young man, should and are advised to take the position that if a woman makes a vow, then when she breaks that vow, any benefit from that vow is forfeit. I recommend you take that position. Okay, so when a woman says, I want to break my marriage vow, fine, break your marriage vow. All benefit from the marriage is now forfeit. You don't get to keep the benefit of the vow when you break the vow, is my argument. And of course, no women can argue that. So that just makes you a woman hater. You have a small penis. You live in your mama's basement. You're going to die alone. You can't get laid. And all the shaming language that women like to engage in when the obvious is pointed out to them. When you break your vow, you don't get to keep the benefits of the vow, right? So Jennifer broke her vow and she started behaving like a complete bitch. And I mean a complete bitch. She went nasty. She became a very nasty, cruel, vindictive woman who would deliberately, with malice aforethought, provoke me and bait me and do all these sorts of things within our marriage. And I would say to her, this is not okay. You are being abusive of me and this is not okay. You should stop this, right? I won't tolerate you doing this. Stop this. And she'd go, well, who's going to make me? You're going to make me stop? And of course, this is behind the whole, it's never okay to hit a woman, right? What my fave number one taught me is right there and then I should have put her over my knee and spanked her like a child, right? When she was becoming abusive and obnoxious, my fave number one said, when your wife became abusive and obnoxious, what you should have done is put her over your knee and spank her like a child. And then say, if you want to call the police and you want to get a divorce, go ahead. Call now, right? If you're going to be abusive of me, I'm going to spank you, and you pick up the telephone and call the police, we're divorced. What are you going to do? That's what my fave number one said. And you know what she said? She said, no woman will pick up the phone and call the police because she knows she needs to be spanked. That's what my fave number one said, right? Now, of course, what women will do with this story of my life is they will attribute that statement to me and say, Peter is a woman beater. He's a wife beater. He beat his wife. When in fact, I never did. And the fact that I never did was actually the problem, right? But, you know, the truth is the first casualty of anything that women say nowadays. And it's really quite disgraceful, in my opinion. So Jennifer became this really, really horrible, nasty woman. And I said, you know, I don't like this because we have 2 small children now. And when I said, until death do us part, I meant it, right? So we need to sort this out. And she's like, no, I don't need to sort this out. Why should I need to sort anything out, right? And she understood that socially, she now had the upper hand and that she could be abusive of me as much as she liked. Because, you know, when women abuse men, they're just supposed to tolerate it. When men abuse women, men are just outright bastards and they should be locked up and they should have everything stolen from them. This is what is called equality nowadays. So anyhow, a little bit of time passed, and I was very sick of this horrible, nasty, abusive woman that had emerged from the woman that I had loved. It was really like somebody had waved a magic wand over her, and this demon had come out. Now I remember, my fave number 3 telling me what a horrible, nasty, abusive mother she had towards her father. And she said to me, when I was a teenage girl, I asked my father one day, "Why did you marry such a horrible woman?" And her father said, "Well, she wasn't a horrible woman before I married her." He said, "Before you children turned up, she was very nice to me." And so she said, "Well, why didn't you leave her after she started being horrible?" And he said, "Well, there were you 2 children to consider. Yeah, your mother's a horrible, nasty woman, she's a witch, but I still had 2 children to raise, so I just put up with it." That's what her father said to her. And it's the same as me. I was putting up with this horrible, nasty, vindictive, cruel, vicious woman because the kids needed to be raised. And I had seen what a terrible mother Jennifer was by this stage. I didn't realise it. While she was still running what we call the demonstration model, she was being relatively good to her kids, to her children, from her first marriage, the one that she deliberately got pregnant with when she was 16. And I very, very majorly suspect she got deliberately pregnant with Jared against her then husband's wishes as well. I very majorly suspect that, but I have no evidence of that. Now, so Jennifer turned nasty, but she didn't only turn nasty to me, she turned nasty to her children. And this was also for me a very, very worrying sign, given that we had 2 small children, right? And so there was also the issue of I need to be careful and concerned about my children, because I know that in my society, I may get the boy, but she'll get the girl, and she's going to be abusive of this girl throughout this girl's life, right? And so that consideration was also there. Now, the other thing that was there was also, how are these kids going to grow up? I've brought these children into the world. I believed I was the father. I've made the commitment to bring these children into the world. And now it turns out that I have an absolutely horrible woman. I've chosen a horrible woman as their mother. This is a big mistake. So, of course, the obvious thing to do, the obvious remedy, was to have the woman, Jennifer, be a decent human being again, right? So, as it was, a friend of mine, at this stage, by this stage, I'd put on the table, "You are such a horrible woman. I absolutely do not want to spend the rest of my life with you, and I do not want to expose my son to you for the rest of his life. So what I suggest we do is I take the boy, you take the girl, we call it quits, we sell the house, we call it quits, and we move on, right? Because you are a bitch." Right? We had this conversation exactly like that. I think I should take the boy, you take the girl, because that's what's going to happen anyway if we go to the courts, and move on, because you, Jennifer, are a complete bitch. And that's what I said to her. And because she denied and blah, blah, blah. But of course, even as much as you try and protect the reputation of your wife and pretend that everything's okay at home in the workplace, a friend of mine noticed that all was not right, and he invited me to the Landmark Forum. And, Julie, Jennifer, and I did the Landmark Forum, and she realised at the Landmark Forum that she was a complete bitch, and that she had been highly abusive of me, and that I, on the other hand, was the absolute catch of her husband, and that she had made a huge mistake. She realised that during the forum. And so on the Sunday night of the forum, she came and she asked me to marry her again. And I decided to give her another chance. Okay, that was the first time. So this was February 1995. That was the first time Jennifer came to me and admitted her fault by asking me to marry her again. And knew and understood that she had been a complete bitch and she'd been horrible and nasty to me, right? And yet women will say to me, "Oh, your wife dumped you." Yeah, well, she begged me to take her back 5 times, and the 5th time I said no. Now, the following 6 months after the Landmark Forum, Jennifer was a decent human being, like she had been to me all during our courting period, right? And of course, after 6 months, she reverted to type. So, being a Christian man, I would pray that the woman that I married would show up again one day. Okay, I asked God, please, I want the woman that I married, not this harpy shrew that has turned up. And Jennifer did other things. For example, she refused to go to work. She just quit work and refused to go to work. Because she got pregnant at 16, of course, she left school, got married, dropped out of school, and I put her back through college. I paid for her tuition fees. I did many of her assignments. I helped her along. I got her a part-time job at IBM as a secretarial assistant. I helped her get her job at a large insurance company called National Mutual, and solely because of me, she got the opportunity to have a job at IBM, because she kept applying to IBM, but she wasn't good enough to make the cut at IBM. In IBM, when you join IBM, or when you try and join IBM, in those days, there was a long series of tests that you had to sit, a whole day's worth. And if you were ranked from these tests, and IBM, as is their right, would choose the best people from the rankings on the test. And Jennifer never made the cut. So as it happened one time, somebody who had accepted a job, ranked well and accepted a job with IBM, rang my old manager, a guy called Terry, who's long since retired, I'm sure. So she rang my old manager, and this guy rang my old manager and said, "I'm sorry, but I'm not taking the job." Now this left Terry in the difficult position that it was Thursday afternoon, and he'd made the job offer, and if the guy didn't turn up on the Monday morning, as was expected, right, Terry would lose that head count. He wouldn't get it back. He couldn't go back. The way that it worked in IBM is he just couldn't go back and say, "Oh, this guy didn't take the job, therefore I need to start the interview process again and go through the process again." The way it worked was, well, it's your responsibility to make sure that you only offer the jobs to the people who will take them. So if you make an offer of a job and line it all up, and the guy then says no, you're out of luck, right? You lose your head count. That's how it worked at IBM. And so on the Thursday afternoon, Terry, knowing me, knowing my wife, came to me and said, "Look, is Jennifer still interested in a job here?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely. We would love her to have a job here. And, I'm committed to IBM, and, I would love her to have a job here. It would solve a lot of our problems for us." "Why? What are you talking about?" And he explained the situation to me. And he said, "Get Jennifer here 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. She must do these tests again. But in the face of, if I don't hire her, I lose the head count, I can pretty much guarantee that I will hire her because I understand your position. And I understand that she'll be a good worker and committed to the job." I went, "Okay, well, she will be. I will do everything I can to improve her skills and have her be a good employee. You'll know that, right? And it would be great to have us both working here as a married couple." So Jennifer came in the next day. She did the test again, as normal. She didn't do outstandingly on them, but in the face of either hire Jennifer or lose the head count, my old manager hired her, and it was a good hire. I mean, she did do a good job over the ensuing 5 years she worked for IBM. So I took a woman who had deliberately got pregnant and dropped out of school at the age of 16, living in a small country town, and via my efforts and her efforts, but only because she was my girlfriend, she finished up with a job at IBM. And that's a really big step up from being a single mother in a government house with no prospects and no education. So these women say, "Well, you were married to Jennifer, so you benefited from the marriage, so you should be paying her all this money." Well, Jennifer was a single mother of two living in a council house with a who dropped out of school, who I paid for her college education, I did her assignments, and I helped her into a career at IBM. How much is that worth? Shouldn't she be paying me for that? Because getting her into a good career in IT, she was a programmer, I got her into a programming career in IBM. Getting her into a programming career in IBM is worth way more than any sex she might have given me. It's worth way more than anything she could have given me, right? It's worth her salary, right? Her annual salary, the only reason she ever got her annual salary was because of me. She had no other way of obtaining a decent annual salary other than via me. Shouldn't she be paying me? Shouldn't I get a commission from that? I could well argue to women, right? So that's how that went. Now, of course, Jennifer just chose not to go to work one day. Having put her through college and done her assignments and got her jobs, she just said, I'm not going to work anymore because it's boring and I don't like it. Well, who would have thought work might be boring? Who would have thought you might not like your job? Some days, right? Who would ever have imagined that might happen? Like all those plumbers and electricians, they just love, all those plumbers, they just love getting into sewage, right? All those electricians just love getting electrocuted every now and again. That's just fantastic, right? They love it. So she refused to go to work. Not only did she refuse to go to work, at one stage she went for a holiday, Christmas holiday in Wagga. And Wagga is about 500 kilometres from Sydney, right? It's halfway between Sydney and Melbourne. She went on a summer holiday with the children in Wagga over the Christmas break, and unilaterally decided, I'm not coming back. I'm going to live here in Wagga. And we didn't even have enough money, really, to pay for our own house in Sydney. And so this woman unilaterally decides, well, I'm just going to live in Wagga now. And it's like, we don't have money to pay for a house in Wagga. Well, you have to rent out the rooms of the house. This is the obnoxiousness. This is the sheer hubris of a Western woman now. I can unilaterally decide I'm going to relocate these 4 children to another city 500 kilometres away without my husband's approval or agreement. That's the hubris of it. And her mother supported this. Now, of course, my grandmothers would have said, you made your bed, you sleep in it. You married the man, you signed the contract for the house, you had the children, you go back to your husband and you raise these children, right? That's what my grandmothers would have said. Her mother is like, oh, that's okay, dear, and Peter should pay for everything, right? That's what grandmothers are like now, okay? So yes, you as a young man should understand that if you get married to a woman, she will feel perfectly entitled to relocate your children to another city without your consent, even while you are married. And you should understand that her mother and all the other women around her will say, that's perfectly okay. Why should a woman not have the right to relocate your children somewhere else and for you to be forced to pay for it? I mean, of course she has the right to do that, right? You should understand that. So that also happened. Then, of course, with Jennifer refusing to work and use her degree that she got and refusing to work, the entire burden of paying for a family of 6 in Sydney fell on me. So what was I doing? I was working my ass off, of course. Okay? I was working 12 to 14 hours a day, 13 days a week mostly, to try and pay for all this, okay? Because I didn't, we had by this stage, we had a really good house in a really good location. I didn't want to lose the house, etc., etc. And I was paying for all this. And I'm like, this is completely insane. Now, I did get some very good paying jobs at Hitachi and PricewaterhouseCoopers. I was in my area of business, I was one of the highest paid people in the country, and I was doing some of the toughest jobs in the country, which were very demanding, in order to provide for a family of 6 where the wife flatly refused to work, right? That's how that worked out. So Jennifer having gone to the forum in 2005, having understood and admitted she had been a complete bitch, vicious, cruel and nasty towards me, promising to repent and promising to get better. That lasted 6 months, and then she went right back to type, right? So continue on. We did the forum again in the end of 2000 before we relocated to Ireland in January 2001. So we arrived in Ireland. Jennifer took a 2-week holiday, and I continued working. And I flew direct from Sydney to Paris, and met up with Jennifer and the kids in Paris to fly over to Dublin. So Jennifer's sister, Kerry, went with Jennifer with the kids on the 2-week holiday that I was supposed to have. So I went direct. I finished work on the Friday night. I finished work on the Thursday night in Sydney. We had a farewell lunch on lunchtime Friday, and I went back to my mate's place, had a shower, went out to the airport and flew out of Sydney Friday night and got into Paris Saturday afternoon or something. And then from Paris we flew over to Dublin on the Sunday to go stay in our bed and breakfast while we searched for a house. So that was my holiday. My holiday was I had a lunch on a Friday while relocating to another country. And then on the we went to the bed and breakfast, and on the Tuesday or Wednesday, I think it was, I had to fly to Brussels to do a class, something like that. I can't remember exactly how that went. So we relocated to Ireland, and we didn't live in the lap of luxury because Ireland was very expensive, especially for rent, and we put the kids into the best school that we could, the highest priced school in Ireland the kids went to, and we did that because we felt that we were only there for 2 years. So for the 2 years that we were going to be there, we'll put the kids in the best school. So Jennifer was now living the life of luxury with kids in the best schools, admittedly a small place that we were in, and a little 2-bedroom apartment, which was costing us €1,500 a month at the time, which is an astounding amount of money for a 2-bedroom apartment, small 2-bedroom apartment. And so I was travelling around doing work, etc., etc. And Jennifer continued to be nasty and horrible and all the rest of it. But this was kind of like our opportunity to have 2 years working overseas, of living and working overseas, while the older children had just left school and the younger children were still not yet in high school. We had this 2-year window of opportunity, and if we didn't do it in these 2 years, then we'd have to wait until the younger children were finished high school before we had this opportunity or possibility of an overseas adventure, as it were. So yeah, we were living in Ireland, and Jennifer continued on with being nasty to me even while I was travelling around. And so the second year we were there, we'd done quite well, and so we invited Kristen, Jennifer's eldest daughter, the one that was a product of a vicious, malicious deception. Kristen came over and au paired for us when she was 21, right? That's how old she was at the time when she came and au paired for us in 2002. And Kristen was vicious, absolutely vicious to her mother. She would sit at the breakfast table and say the most cruel and vicious of things to her mother. Jennifer would run upstairs and be crying on her bed and all the rest of it, right? She was just vicious. And Jennifer would say to me during this time that Kristen was there, Jennifer would say to me, "You need to talk to Kristen because she's being nasty to me." And I would look at her and say, "Excuse me? 1, she's your daughter. 2, she's an adult. She's 21. 3, when I was telling you, when you were raising Kristen, I was telling you, stop demeaning her, stop criticizing her, stop putting her down. You're being cruel and vicious to her. You are undermining her self-esteem the exact same way you told me that your mother undermined your self-esteem, you are doing to Kristen, and I'm telling you to stop it." I can't make you stop it. I'm the stepfather and you're the mother. So everyone knows the mother gets precedence. But I'm telling you, you are injuring this girl, you're doing her harm, and I recommend you stop it. That's the conversations that we used to have in private when Jennifer was raising Kristen as this horrible, nasty woman that she had turned into, right? And now, at 21, Kristen was paying her back. And because she had no answer to Kristen paying her back, because she had been a nasty mother to her, she would come to me, her white knight, and say, you need to sort Kristen out. And I'd say, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not getting involved. I'm not getting involved in the relationship between you and Kristen, certainly not to help you out, because you deserve everything that you're getting from her. I actually said that to her one day when she was crying in her bed. I said to her, do you understand that every single word Kristen says to you, which is cruel like this, you absolutely deserve? You deserve it. You need to toughen up and get over it, because you deserve it, right? And you need to sort out your relationship with this woman. So Kristen and Jennifer fought like cats the entire time that Kristen was in the house. They just fought like cats. Anyhow, part of the purpose of having Kristen be the au pair was for Jennifer to be able to travel and visit me more frequently, right? Because I was working overseas so much. Now, I did a 9-month job in New Jersey in North America, and Kristen was the au pair during this period. And I said to Jennifer, I want you to come and visit me. And you know what she did? She used the money that I was paying for Kristen to be our au pair, because she refused to help in the business at all. And she took that money and she flew and visited a friend of ours in Detroit. Flew right over the top of me, spending my money. You know, I hired Kristen as an au pair and I was paying Kristen as an au pair. She took that money and she flew right over my head to go and visit her friends. And then she came back on a visit through New Jersey, and I took her up to Boston and I showed her a really good time up in Boston. Stayed in a Swiss hotel in Boston. I got a good deal, but it was a $450 a night suite that we were staying in a Swiss hotel, which I got a good deal on. So it was all very nice to her, etc., etc. Then an incident happened, which I won't discuss, but when we got back to our apartment in New Jersey, an incident happened where Jennifer was continually provoking me for years, and she provoked me again, and I lost my temper. Now, we all have a temper, and we all occasionally lose our tempers. The last time I'd lost my temper, I was 12 years old. Okay? At this point in time, in 2002, I was 38. So I had made it through 26 years of living without ever once losing my temper. That's how cool, calm, and collected person I am. People, of course, over the years had tried to rile me and needle me and all the rest of it, trying to provoke you to losing your temper. And I'm such a cool, calm, collected guy that nobody had provoked me into losing my temper for 26 years. And here it was, my wife was provoking me into losing my temper. Okay, and I did. And as I realized, because, you know, having not lost my temper for 26 years, I wasn't really on top of the situation. As I realized I was losing my temper, I realized what danger this woman that I loved was in. I could kill her if I lost my temper. Easily, given the size I am and the size she is, if I hit her, I would most likely kill her. Certainly I would do her a great deal of damage if I hit her. If I hit her while I was in a temper tantrum, I had every chance of doing great damage, if not killing her. So as I realized I was losing my temper, I got up and I ran to the bathroom, the second bathroom in this apartment. And Jennifer, now knowing that she'd really gotten under my skin, actually ran after me, okay, trying to further provoke me. So while I was losing my temper, and I realized I was losing my temper, and realized that I was now a danger to this woman, if I didn't put something between me and her, I ran to the bathroom. She actually tried to run after me and provoke me more. This is how vicious this woman is. and there was a bit of a pushing and shoving match at the door of the bathroom, okay, where she pushed and shoved, and she tried to get into the bathroom. And of course, I'm 50% bigger than she is, so she didn't have much of a chance of pushing and shoving into the door. And I shut the door and I locked it. And I sat in the bathroom for about 10 or 15 minutes. Don't really know how long. And so this cruel, vicious, nasty woman provoked me to the point where I lost my temper for the first time in 26 years. Now, what will women say about that? Women will say about that, see, he's violent. See, he has a temper, right? That's what women will say about that. But, what do we hear every time a woman slaps a man, every time a woman loses a temper? What do you hear, young man? You hear, oh, he must have done something to make her lose a temper. He must have done something to her to make her angry, right? When a woman provokes a man, it's not, she must have done something to make him angry. It is, he's a violent man, he's a bastard. And this is the society that you as a young man live in. That is how you will be judged. No matter what a woman does to you, people will say to you, you must never hit a woman. No matter what she does to you, no matter how much she provokes you, you're the bastard if you defend yourself, right? But if a woman hits you, you obviously did something to provoke her, and it's obviously not her fault, right? That's the situation you live in. Now this is just on 50 minutes, so I'm going to save this file and I'm going to start another one, so I'll be right back with you. And welcome back. Now I just want to paint the scene. This was April 2002, and this was the first time Jennifer had managed to provoke me so much that I actually lost my temper. So I sat in the bathroom for like 10 or 15 minutes, as I said, I don't know exactly how long. When I came out, I said, okay, I need to make a cup of coffee. We need to sit and talk. And so we had a cup of coffee and we sit at the dining room table in the apartment, and I said, I'm going to divorce you. And she looked at me and said, why? And I said, you just provoked me enough that I lost my temper. I could have killed you right now. And she looked at me and she's like, what are you talking about? And I said, look how big I am and look how small you are. So you provoked me to losing my temper. If I hit you, I would do you great damage if I hit you. And if I hit you in temper, I could kill you. So right now, when this incident just happened, I could have killed you right now. Said, I do not trust myself around you anymore. I said to her, you are just a vicious, horrible, nasty bitch, and I could have killed you right now, and everybody knows that I would be blamed for that. You be dead, I'd go to jail. What'll happen to the kids? I cannot be with you anymore. I will not be with you anymore. Because you won't change. You won't stop provoking me. You won't stop being a cruel, vindictive, nasty bitch. You've been asked to stop this. You've been asked time and time. I said to her, sitting at the table, you have been asked by me time and time and time again to stop being a cruel, vicious, nasty, vindictive bitch. I have asked you to stop that. And you won't. You refuse to stop that. You just want to pick and pick and pick and pick and abuse me, and now I've lost my temper for the first time since I was a 12-year-old, and I could have killed you. I don't want to be around you anymore, and I won't be around you anymore. We are getting divorced. That's it. And she's like, no, that's not going to happen. Absolutely it's going to happen. And I said to her, this is April 2002, when I finish this job, we're going to end the lease on our apartment. We're going to go back to Australia. We're going to ask the tenants if they would move, because the tenancy agreement runs for another 6 months. We will give them money, make them an offer to move 6 months earlier, because we signed the lease to get back into our own house. If we can't get our own house back to sell, because we're going to sell the house, then we can go live somewhere else. But we are getting divorced. We are going back as soon as this job is over. No holiday, because we'd planned a European holiday. No holiday, we're not having a holiday. We're going to take the money we've got, we're going to go back to Australia, and we're going to get on with our lives, and I'm divorcing you. Because you will not stop being a cruel, vindictive, vicious and nasty bitch. You won't stop it. And I can't tolerate it anymore. Right? You've pushed me to the end of my tolerance. I cannot tolerate this anymore. I've lost my temper once. I'm never going to lose my temper with you again. I'm not doing this anymore. Because it's dangerous. I could kill you. I could go to jail for you keep provoking me like this. You could be dead and I could be in jail for the rest of my life. I don't want this. That's not what I want. So we have to get divorced. We have to get divorced because you won't change. You won't be a decent human being. And that's the conversation we had at our table, right? And she's like, well, you're not going to do that. And absolutely. So I think a day or two later, I put her on a plane and sent her back to Dublin. And because the phone calls, the emails, the begging, no, I'm so sorry, take me back. No, I'm not taking you back. No, I'm not taking you back ever again. That's it. It's dangerous. You're dangerous to me. Right? You are dangerous to me. You could have me in jail for the rest of my life. Right? And I don't want that. Those were the replies going back, right? No, I'm not going to do this. So then she changed tack. And her tack was, well, okay, well, I accept that we're going to get divorced, but while we're here, shouldn't we have this holiday that we've planned? And I'm like, no, I'm not going to spend money on a holiday. I'm going to go back to find a job and continue on with my life. No holiday, right? Now, of course, it had turned out that she told all her friends about she's going to go and have this wonderful European holiday, and she's now embarrassed that she may not have this holiday. So it had nothing to do with me. It had to do with the embarrassment she was going to suffer from her friends because she told everybody she's going on this holiday. I've been speaking for an hour, so I do have a cool drink to help me talk. And she continued on begging and begging and begging and begging to have this holiday. And I said no. So then she changed her tack again and said, well, you know, the children are here and they haven't been to these places that we've been to, and you know, why don't we give the children one last holiday? Why don't we pretend to be happy for the sake of the children and give the children one last chance at a holiday before they go back, because they'll never be back here again, you know. It's very unlikely they'll ever have this opportunity again for themselves. That was her next tack. Let's have the holiday, not for me, not to save me from embarrassment from my friends, but let's do it for the children, right? That was her next sales pitch. So I thought about that for a while and thought, well, you know, the kids have been without their father for a considerable period of time, and it would be a lovely opportunity for them to travel, to have a somewhat of a holiday with us. Would be a great opportunity for me to go and have a really nice holiday around Europe. We had plenty of money at the time. So in the end, I said, on the basis that, one, it would be a good opportunity for me to have a holiday, because a holiday wasn't going to cost much. We could take our car and just stay in hotels, so the cost of the holiday was very little, and the kids could come for part of it, and the kids could have the other thing that weighed heavily on my mind was that the children could have one more period with their parents together before we had to tell them that we were going to get divorced. And the plan was that Joshua would come with me and Josephine would go with Jennifer. So knowing that the plan was for the children to be now separated from each other, and of course they were brother and sister, they didn't want to be separated from each other. And as much as they fight and niggle at each other, as brothers and sisters do, they loved each other very much and very protective of each other. So there was the element of, we're going to split these children now, and this is going to be quite devastating in the lives of the children. So maybe one last nice holiday together where Jennifer and I pretend in front of the children that things are okay before we then split at the end of the year, and we go back to Sydney at the end of the year that's not such a bad thing. Maybe we should just go through to the end of the year. And so, because the holiday was going to be a 3-month holiday, which would take them into September, and then it's only really October, November before you come to December, and then they could start the new school year in Australia. So I made the decision that we would go on this holiday. We would pretend to the children that all was okay, meaning lie to them, and we would then relocate back to Sydney in the January time frame. December, Christmas in Ireland, relocate to our house. The tenants could be informed and they'd be required to leave, and we could get our house back in the December, because the plan was that I would move back into, one of us, Jennifer or I, would move back into the house, and that would be a close place for the kids to go to school. Whatever happened with whoever didn't live in the house would perhaps be able to get a place nearby. So those were the considerations at the time. So Jennifer and I duly went on our 13-week holiday, and she's like, we don't really have to get divorced. She had 13 weeks to talk to me, right? We had the kids in the 13 weeks. We had the kids with us for 4 weeks for a holiday in Sweden. We were 2 weeks in Stockholm and 2 weeks on Gotland. So we had to pretend to the children for 4 weeks that everything was okay. There was no conversation about the divorce during those 4 weeks. But during the other 9 weeks of this holiday that Jennifer and I were alone together, she had the opportunity to discuss the situation with me. I was there driving the car. She was sitting in the passenger side. No way I was going to allow her to drive because we were on the wrong side of the road for us, and she's a terrible driver. So I drove the whole way from Dublin all the way out to Vienna, up to Stockholm, up to Trondheim, down to Bergen, across Scotland. I drove that whole way. So she sat in the passenger seat and I drove. And I said, I'm driving. You want to speak to me? You've got a captive audience. If you've got anything to say, here I am. And she's like, well, I don't want to get divorced, and I don't want this, and I don't want that, and blah, blah, blah. And I would say to her, Jenny, because, when we were together, she preferred Jenny. She hates Jennifer, because Jennifer was the name that her father called her when she was a naughty girl, when she was little. So I always refer to her as Jennifer now, because I know that she really hates it. So I said to her in the car, Jenny, look, you have had chance after chance after chance after chance of being just a decent human being, right? Just be decent. Just stop trying to provoke me. Stop trying to demean me. Stop trying to criticize me. Love me, honor me. Love, honor, and obey is the commandment. You wouldn't do obey, but just love me and honor me. Is that so hard? Just don't be horrible and nasty. Right? You've had chance after chance after chance, and you won't do it. Right? You just won't do it. You just have to keep picking at me. You just have to keep criticizing me. You just have to keep abusing me. You just keep doing it. And I can't hit you. I have no way to retaliate or to defend myself. So the only answer is I have to divorce you. Because I can't be around you anymore, because it's dangerous for both of us, because you won't stop being a complete bitch. You just won't stop it. I don't want to be around you. I dislike being around you. Here we are on a summer holiday of a lifetime. This could have been a fantastic summer holiday of a lifetime, and I intensely dislike you sitting in the seat next to me. I intensely dislike that experience. I intensely dislike getting into bed with you at night in a hotel. Here we are, staying in all these wonderful hotels, driving all over Europe, seeing all these wonderful things, which could have been a wonderful experience between the two of us, and I intensely dislike having you with me. And that's what I said to her. I intensely dislike you being here. But you might as well be here. I'm having a good time. I'm seeing all these things for the first time. I'm enjoying myself seeing these things in and of this experience for myself. And I intensely dislike you being near me. And you're my wife. Those were the conversations we had in the car. And she's crying and babbling and carrying on. And I'm like, do not try crying with me. You know it's not going to work. I know you're lying. I know that you're going to cry and do all this other stuff and produce all this drama in order to try and manipulate me. I know you're going to try and do that, but at the end of the day, you're still a vicious, nasty bitch. Those were the conversations we had in this car. Okay? And so, we did this whole trip. And then we got back to Dublin, and it was time to plan, how we're going to we're going to end this lease. We'd written to the tenants and give them 3-month notice, etc., etc. And we're having dinner one night with some new Australian friends. And this woman who was a school teacher at the kids' school. We're having dinner with this woman, the school teacher, an Australian woman, school teacher from the school. And she says to me, why don't you apply for Irish citizenship? Because your kids will get Irish citizenship and they'll have the opportunity to live and work in Ireland and live and work anywhere in the EU. And I said, well, the reason is, Jennifer and I checked that out, and neither of us are entitled to citizenship by right of marriage. We just miss out. And so if under Australian citizenship rules, if you apply for a second citizenship, then you have to renounce your Australian citizenship, and I don't want to do that. And she said, no, the legislation has changed. You can apply for a second citizenship without giving up your Australian citizenship now. And I said, well, I haven't heard of that, so how would you know that? And she says, well, my husband actually works in the embassy here in Dublin. I'm a school teacher, but my husband works at the embassy, so we know the legislation because he works at the embassy. I said, really? So I Google searched it and looked it up, and sure enough, the legislation had changed. Just in April that year, April 2002, the legislation in Australia was changed such that an Australian citizen could apply for a second citizenship without renouncing their Australian citizenship. And I went, oh, well, that's very interesting. And of course, Jennifer leapt on this. She absolutely leapt on it. And it's like, oh, think of the kiddies. The kiddies, if you divorce me now and we go back to Australia, the kiddies will never have the chance of being Irish citizens. They'll never have the opportunity of living and working in Ireland. And think of the kiddies, even if you don't want to be married to me, I can be nice enough to you that, I won't provoke you into temper anymore. I can be nice enough to you, but think of the kiddies. Think of the kiddies. And there was this 2 or 3 weeks of, think of the kids, the kids can get Irish citizenship. This would be a huge thing for the kids, right? Nothing to do with me. Nothing to do with the fact that I'd get Irish citizenship as well. It's all about the children, right? And because me, it didn't really matter, because I could get, in my position, I could get a work permit wherever I liked. But the opportunity for the children to get Irish citizenship and have access to the EU and a second citizenship and a second passport for their whole lives, and for their children to inherit that opportunity, of course, that is a very, very, very major benefit for the children. And so Jennifer knew that was a major benefit, so she spent 2 or 3 weeks. What about the kiddies? What about the kiddies, right? So after 2 or 3 weeks, I said, okay, well, let's sit down. And I said, here's the deal. Here's the offer. I am going to divorce you, right? We do need to get divorced because you are a cruel, horrible, nasty person. We are going to get divorced, right? I want you to understand that. She goes, yes, no question. I've been bad. I deserve to be divorced, right? No question. So the other thing is, you won't do anything to help provide for these children. These children are old enough now. They, by 2002, they were 11 and 9. They said these children are old enough now that they don't need a quote full-time stay-at-home mother, right? You're not doing anything useful during the day, and I have a business to run, so you need to help in our business. It could be your business too. You're an IT person, but this is my business. You've done nothing to help me for years. You need to work. You need to do something useful in order to make your contribution to the income of the family. You have to work. Oh, yes, 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 I promise I'll work, right? Said, yeah, well, I don't believe your promises because you have lied to me in the past, right? So here's the deal. Let us assign a value to the house today, right? We'll assign a value to the house today. What it was valued at when we left. The same value that we left, which was $700,000. The bank sent a value around and valued the house at $700,000. So we'll value the house at $700,000. We have a mortgage of $220,000, something else like that. So what's left over? We will split this money 50-50 here today. I will give you. You didn't earn it, and you don't deserve it, right? But if we went off to the courts and we had the whole argument, they'd give you 50% of the house, right? So rather than go to the courts and have the whole argument, I will give you 50% of the value of the house, despite the fact you didn't earn it, you didn't work for it, you didn't pay for it, right? And I will put that. I will allocate that money, and I will pay you a salary for the work that you do. I will. Every day that you work and you do the work that I ask you to do, I will attribute money to that from the business. And every day you don't work, I will take money out of your half of the house. You work, you pay for yourself, at least as much as it is that you can, or you pay for yourself out of your half of the house. Now, for the children, I will pay for everything for the children. Their food, their clothes, their schools, the housing, everything for the children. The only thing you need to do is you need to work to pay for yourself, right? Your time in tending to the children, we will balance as I'm putting in 100% of the money, you're putting in your time. We'll call that even. Okay, what you have to do is you have to do some work in my business to pay for yourself. Oh yes, I will. I promise I will do that. I promise I will do that. Yes, yes, yes. I will work for you. I will do whatever you ask. If only you'll give the kiddies his chance of getting Irish citizenship. Nothing to do with me. You know, I don't want Irish citizenship for myself. I'm not greedy. I'm not selfish. It's not for me. It's all for the kiddies. Right? You're a young man. You know the kind of argument that women put together, right? So that's what she was talking about, yeah? So the agreement was made. Now when we bought our house in 1993, and when Jennifer refused to work, I had the conversation with her in 1994. We bought our house in 1992, February 1992. So when she refused to work, I said, you signed a mortgage contract that says you are going to contribute to pay for this mortgage. What have you got to say about that? And she said, well, I never said I was going to pay the mortgage. And I said, you put your signature on a contract that says I'm going to pay for this mortgage. Oh, no, she said, just because I signed a contract, I never gave my word to pay the mortgage, right? This is how privileged women are. Women can sign a contract, but that's not binding on a woman, right? So here, all these 2 years later, 2002, I said to her, now, when you refused to pay the mortgage, you claimed that because you'd never given your word to pay the mortgage, that you were not obliged to pay it. You remember saying that to me, right? She's like, yeah. So I said, so now here we are. You're giving me your word. Are you giving me your word? Do you guarantee that you will work, or you will take a deduction from your half of the house? Are you guaranteeing me this? Do we need to write this down? Do you need to sign a contract? Do we need to have this in writing? And she said, no, we don't need to have this in writing. I am giving you my word about this. So I said, okay, you are giving me your word that you will work and do work for the company in order to generate money for our family and yourself, or you will accept the deduction from your half of the house. You're giving me your word about this. She goes, yes. And I said, well, I'll tell you this. if you break your word on this, I'm going to tell our children that you are a liar and that you refused to make effort to support them, right? If you break your word on this, your children are going to be told you are a liar who refused to support them, who refused to work to support them. And the children have been told this. This is widely known that Jennifer is a liar who refused to support her own children. But apparently that's still okay, and you should understand that, young man. Young man, you should understand that if your wife turns out to be a liar and a thief and a perjurer and a criminal and a prostitute and a child abuser, if your wife chooses to do these things after you marry her, that this is completely, totally and utterly socially acceptable by all the other women around. And it's probably you who made her do that anyway, right? It's probably your fault, right? That's what you need to remember. So Jennifer made that agreement in 2002. Now, of course, over the subsequent 5 years, Jennifer said many, many times, and in front of the children, including Jared, she said many, many times, I don't have to work because I'm living off the proceeds of my half of the house. She said that many times. Now, by the time you get to 2007, guess what? There's no proceeds of her half of the house to live on, okay? She has spent most of the proceeds of her half of the house because living in Ireland is very expensive, okay? So all these women who lie about me and say Jennifer was entitled to 95% of the house, right? Women will actually say Jennifer was entitled to 95% of the house because the children needed somewhere to live, right? And the children were 16 and 14. So she's entitled to 95% of the house. She's entitled to the house because the children need somewhere to live. Well, the children were 16 and 14. They needed somewhere to live for the next 4 years, right? Once Joshua was 18, he didn't need somewhere to live. In this house, he could go out and get his own place, right? But women will lie, pathological lie, and say, well, the children needed somewhere to live, therefore the woman should be given the house and the man should be given nothing. That's their lie. You can go ask online, you can go talk to women and say, well, when the children are 14 and 16, why should the woman get 95% of the house on the basis of the children need somewhere to live when they only need somewhere to live for the next 2 and 4 years? Right? The house is forever. They only need somewhere to live for the next 2 and 4 years. Go and ask women that. See what response you get. They'll probably just call you a woman hater, right? So, even though women justify the 95%, the fact of the matter was that Jennifer had made an agreement, given her word, that she would live off her proceeds of the house if she didn't work. And her proceeds of the house were dissipated. There's a little bit left, but nothing that you would talk about, right? So when I say the house was my property, I earned it, I paid for it, right? And Jennifer did not earn it, did not pay for it, was given 50% of it and spent it, okay? Given 50% of it, unearned and unpaid for, and spent it. Women will then say, well, she should be given it again, right? She should be given it again. And not just 50%, she should be given 95% of it again. This is what the women in your society are like. This is what women think is absolutely fair. They think because she was married to me, because Jennifer was married to me, she's entitled to be paid for the rest of her life out of the proceeds of my labour. That's an entitlement. That's a right, women say. This is what they call equality. The man must pay for the woman for the rest of her life because he married her. That's what women say is equality. And you won't find any women who will rail against that. You won't find any women who will criticise that notion, right? So by 2007, Jennifer lawfully, on her oath, on her word, owned nothing of the house, right? So when we were talking in 2007, about the divorce. And another thing that not many people know, and it is published, she was sleeping at another guy's place by this stage in 2007. So we were married, but in name only, and she's sleeping at some other guy's place, and the citizenship application was being delayed. So what it looks like happened was, because she was sleeping at some other guy's place and the citizenship thing was delayed, she decided to jump off on the divorce before the citizenship thing was sorted. Now remember, in October 2002, the whole argument about let's stay together, let's pretend to be married and stay together in order to get citizenship for the kiddies, that was the whole justification. Now by 2007 it is, well, stuff the kiddies, I'm going to have a hostile divorce and blah blah blah, right? That's what that was all about. So this is just all background for you to know and understand. So that, and it's also here for the women to listen to. So, all the lies that women want to tell about me, they can listen to this, okay? So, in 2007, Jennifer begged me again to take her back, right? And I said, you've got to be kidding me. Are you kidding me? Right? We decided in 2002, we're getting divorced. I don't want you. Right? I do not want you. Now the problem was for Jennifer in 2002, 2003, there was tough times, and I spent 15 months in Saudi Arabia and 15 months in Romania during that recessionary period, and so she's like, and the money was not so good living in Saudi Arabia and Romania, as happens during recessions, right? But in 2005 and 2006. Now in 2006, of course, I saved Jared's life from cancer, okay? And so, the very fact that I saved Jared's life, her son's life, from cancer, was a fortuitous incident on us not being divorced at the time, because if we'd been divorced and she said, Jared's got cancer, will you help me? I'd say, take a flying leap. Go get your new man to help you. You dumped me, I wasn't good enough for you, and my family's not good enough for you. You get your new man to help you with your son, right? Go sort it out yourself. That's what I would have told her. And he probably would have died, right? So, anyhow, in 2005 and 2006, of course, things were better in Europe, and I managed to get a job back in Europe. And I made a lot of money. And in 2007, I made my first decent deal of my software, proving that my software was sellable. She was continually criticizing me about putting all this time into my software, saying, you'll never get your money back for all this time you're spending, etc., etc. Just a second. And I was saying, thank you for all your support. I believe in this software, and it's going to make money for me. And indeed, I'm ahead on the deal if I consider that the development time of my software was 100 euros an hour for development time. I'm ahead on the deal in my software. I've made more than 100 euros an hour for all the time that I spent developing it. So in terms of time spent developing my software versus revenue earned, I'm in front of my software as I am on my consulting time. So, the software has paid for itself and will continue to pay for itself. So she saw all this money being made, and the last year, right up before divorce, I made 220,000 euros, right? So, the years during recessions, you don't make so much money, but she saw 220,000 euros come in the front door, and now it is, oh, I love you so much, and you're the most wonderful man in the world, and I've been such a horrible woman, and please, 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 I want to be married to you, and etc., etc., because I can see you can make 200,000 euros a year, right? I don't want a divorce. I want the money, right? That was her view, and that's exactly why, as she saw this money rolling in, that's exactly why she's like, I don't want a divorce. I want this money for the rest of my life. I don't want to have to go back to work. If I get a divorce, I'm going back to work. I don't want that. And that's what this was all about. That's what this hostile divorce was all about. It's all about the money. So she said, I want to be married again, and I'm going to do good, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, are you insane? Do you think I'm stupid? Really? Do you think I'm that stupid? The last 5 years, it's been perfectly okay that, we're getting divorced. Now you see money. Now I'm making the sort of money that I should be making. Now you see the money. Oh, suddenly you don't want a divorce anymore, right? It's all about the money, and I know it's all about the money. So no point you trying to pretend that it's anything else. I know you are now seeing this money come into the company, and you want your slice for the rest of your life. That's what I want to be married to you means when you talk to me now. And I know it, right? I know this. So, no, it's all different. It's not like that at all. And I'm like, Jennifer, don't lie to me. Just stop trying to lie to me about this stuff. So she's like, what could I do to convince you? And I said, look, you and I both know that you've been a bitch. Here's what you can do. You go off to the Landmark Forum. You said, you own nothing now. You're virtually broke, right? You've got no skills because you refuse to work. You refuse to keep up your skills. You got no asset in the house. If you live up to your word, you've got no asset in the house. Here's what you should do. You should go do the Landmark Forum again. And you should go and have a look at who you have been for the last 10 years. Because you're a bitch. You really are a horrible, nasty person. You really are. So go do the forum again and have a look at who you've been and then figure out who you want to be in the future. Right? That's what I would recommend you do. I'll pay for it. I'll pay you'll have to have childcare for the kids. Right? We'll have to have the accommodation in London and tickets and things like that. I'll pay for it. But you need to go do the forum again because you are a horrible person. And it's about time you took care of yourself. It's about time you figured out who you are and what you want to be in the future. Because you're a horrible person. So anyhow, she took up the offer of going to the forum, and she went and she did it again. And one of the things that you do in the forum is you sit there and you tell the person next to you, you'd never met this person before, you just happen to be sitting next to each other in a large group awareness program, right? And you just tell each other about your lives and what you've done, etc., and the other person comments back. You take their comments because they got no bone to pick with you, right? If you say, this is what I've done, and the other person says, you're a complete bastard, you're probably a bastard, right? Because that person has nothing invested in his relationship with you. He's just giving you his opinion based on what you just said. And so Jennifer was talking to this man sitting next to her. And she said to me, this is what she said to me on the phone. She said, he just stared at me. He just had this really vacant look in his face. And after I finished talking, he said to me, this is what he said to me. He said, your husband must love you something fierce. And I said to him, why would you say that? He said, because you, madam, are a complete bitch. And Jennifer said to me, it struck me there and then. He's right. He doesn't know me. And he's right. I am a complete bitch. And I have been for years, for 10 years. Well, this stage, 12 years. And I said, yeah, you have been a complete bitch to me and your children and many of the people around you for 12 years now. You're disgusting. You're horrible. You're nasty. You're a bitch. You're everything the word bitch encompasses. That's what you are. She's like, oh my God. Like, what? You're going to pretend you didn't know this? We're on the telephone and I'm saying to her, you are going to pretend you didn't know this? I could have killed you 5 years ago. You're such a bitch that you provoked me into losing my temper, and I could have killed you 5 years ago. And you're going to sit on this telephone, the other end of this telephone, and you are going to pretend to me that you don't know this? Bullshit. You knew this every step of the way, and I'm not going to accept anything else. She's like, no, I did. I said, yeah, you did. You did know this. She goes, I did. I said, yeah, you knew you were treating me terribly and you did it anyway. You did it anyway. It was malicious, it was vicious, and it was with the malice of forethought. That's who you've been. She's like, I said, yeah, Says, well, can I write you a letter? I said, sure, you can write me a letter. You're my wife. You're entitled to write me a letter. He said, well, I'm going to write you a letter tonight. And I said, sure, write me a letter. I'll read it. And so she wrote me a letter. And I put the link to the letter underneath. And of course, in the email she wrote, she admitted that she was the bully. She admitted that she was at fault. She admitted she abused the children, and she admitted that she had undermined my every effort to provide and support for our family. She admitted it in writing. Okay? She admitted all these things in writing. And after admitting all these things in writing, she said, a less patient man would have divorced me years ago, she said. And she was right. And she said she would have deserved it and that she was the bully. And then she said, despite all this, I now realise who it is that I've been, and I want to make things right, and I want us to be together, and you're my first choice, and I offer myself to you completely, totally and utterly, right? She begged me in May 2007, in writing, she begged me to take her back, right? 2007. She begged me to take her back. This was the fourth time she begged me to take her back, right? And I said to her, okay, are you willing to sign documents acknowledging that you have absolutely no ownership of any of the property of our marriage? Are you willing to sign those documents and have them be legally binding? And she said, no. I said, really? No. The answer is really no. You're not prepared to put in writing a set of legal documents that says, I have no claim to any of this property anymore. You gave me your word in 2002 that you would accept your half of the house at that point in time, and you spent your half of the house, almost all of it, and you're not willing to put that in writing. She goes, no. I said, well, do you imagine I'm stupid? Really, do you imagine that I'm stupid? You've known me since I'm 12. Do you imagine that I am stupid? And she says, no, I don't. I said, well, I don't trust you. I don't believe you. Right? You are a horrible, nasty person who has many times promised me that you're going to do better. You're now promising me you're going to do better again. But here we are, it's May 2007, 5 years after you've made this agreement to live on your half of the house, and you gave me your word, and you acknowledge that you gave me your word, and you're not willing to put your word in writing on legal documents that backs up your word. Again, I ask you, do you think I'm stupid? She goes, no, I don't. I said, tell you what, I'm coming up for a break. It was late May, early June by now. I'm coming up for a break. I'll come home in August, and I will put a piece of paper in front of you, and on that piece of paper, you will write down your agreement to live on your half of the house, and that you have spent your half of the house. You will write it down and you will sign it. You will put on paper exactly what you gave your word to do in April 2002. I'll fly home. You will write that down. And if you will not write that down, I'm not prepared to entertain the idea of not divorcing you. I want that in writing. What you said, I want it in writing. And I said to her, the reason I want it in writing is I want to be able to show your children and your mother and your father and my father, this was the agreement that was made and you broke it. So I want it in writing now. Your word is no longer good enough for me. Right? I told her in May 2007. So I said, okay. So in the August, this was the last time I stayed in the house. In the August 2007, I flew home. I put a keylogger on the computer. As soon as I got home, just normal for me, I get home, I need to do my email, right? So I got home, I did my email, and I put a keylogger on the home computer, right? And as is my right. And I went upstairs and I put the piece of paper in front of Jennifer, and it was a blank piece of paper. And I said, here's a pen, here's a blank piece of paper, write down what you said. Write down your word and sign it and date it. She said, no, I'm not going to sign over my half of the house. And I said, I'm not asking you to sign over your half of the house. I'm asking you to write down what you said in April 2002. Write down what you said in April 2002 and sign it and date it today. That's what I'm asking you to do. And if you are not willing to write down what you said, I'm going to consider that you're not going to keep your word. Right? If you're not willing, I said to her, we're sitting there on the bed, if you're not willing to write down what you said as your word and sign it so that other people know that I'm not lying when I say you said this and you gave your word to do this, I want your signature under what you said on a piece of paper. Otherwise, I will consider your word to be worthless, not worth the paper that you refuse to write it down on. Okay? She said, well, no, I'm not going to write down what I said. Okay? That's it. We know that you lied. You're now admitting that you lied. And when you lied to get me arrested, bashed, arrested and assaulted and thrown in jail in 1997, I said to you on that day, when I got home on the Sunday, I said to you, if I ever catch you lying to me ever again, I will divorce you and leave and I will never come back. I said to you. You remember that, right? And she said, yes, I remember that. I said, well, here we are. It's 10 years later. You gave me your word and I'm asking you to write it down what you said on a piece of paper. You write down what you said on a piece of paper. You date it and you sign it. That's what I'm asking you to do. And you are refusing to do that. And the only reason you could be refusing to do that is you intend to break your word, i.e. you lied. And she wouldn't answer that question. She said, I consider you a liar. Our marriage is over. This is done. No way I would ever take you back. Right? Not happening in a million years. Not happening. You send this letter you go to the Landmark Forum, you understand what a bitch you've been, you try and pretend that you didn't know, right? You try and pretend like I haven't told you this year after year after year after year. You try and pretend that's all just, no, I didn't realize I was being such a horrible woman. My husband's telling me I'm being a horrible, vindictive, nasty, vicious bitch. He's telling me this on a weekly basis, but somehow that just escaped me. You pretend, right? You're lying. The whole thing's a lie. And I know it, right? This is the conversation we had sitting on the bed. The whole thing's a lie, and I know it. So anyhow, the interesting thing was, of course, what does Jennifer go and do now? Jennifer goes and logs onto the computer and sends an email to her lawyer in Dublin and to her lawyer in Australia, right? And because I've got the keylogger, after she goes to bed, I go get the keylogger and I look up the keystrokes that have been typed into the keyboard and I get her password for her Hotmail account. And I go and have a look in her Hotmail account. And sure enough, this is a Saturday night, right? Sure enough, here's an email to each of her lawyers in Dublin and Australia. And she's saying, Peter asked me to sign a document to sign over my half of the house, and I'm not going to sign over my half of the house because I'm entitled to it. That's her message to both her lawyers. Her message to both her lawyers is, I've asked her to sign a document handing over her half of the house. Not what I asked her. I asked her to write down what she said in 2002, right? I asked her to write down what she gave her word to in 2002. So, of course, she was lying to her lawyers. So anyhow, on the Monday morning, I had to go back to work, and I was catching a flight back to Germany. And I said to her in the car, I said, I can't believe that you've been such a horrible woman for so long. And I said to her, I'm so sorry for our children. I really am. I'm so sorry that our children have got a mother like you. I'm really sorry for them for that. And as much as I've tried to set a good example, I'm so sorry that you've abused them and undermined them every step of their way during their life. I'm really sorry for the kids. So in all this, the people that I feel sorry for is I feel sorry for the kids to know that they've got a mother like you. Right? That's what I really feel sorry for. And I said that to her as I was driving to the airport, because we drove out to the airport together. It's our last trip out to the airport together. So, now, this is August 2007, I've got access to her email address. What's the next thing Jennifer does? She waltzes into the bank in Dublin and steals 18,000 euros out of our company account in an act of embezzlement, because she's a director of the company, and as a director you can withdraw funds, but as a director you can only withdraw money from the company that is justified in the purposes of running the company. And she sends a note to her lawyer saying, well, at least I got some money. I've taken 18,000 euros out of the company account and put it into my own personal account. Embezzlement. That's a crime. That's a crime. It's called embezzlement. Stealing money from a company of which you are a director. It's not theft, pure theft, because you have the right to take it, right? You have the right to sign the check. But what you only have the right to sign the check as long as you are acting in the agreed interests of the company. So that's a specific crime called embezzlement. So of course, Jennifer claimed that she had never received the little electronic gadget so that I could see the bank balance of the company directly. And yet the bank manager that I was good friends with at the bank said to me, I called her and said, Jennifer claims that you've never given her this gadget. And she says, Peter, I gave this gadget to your wife directly, put it in her hands myself. She's lying to you. I'm really sorry she's lying to you, but she is. I gave her that gadget myself. I gave both of them. There were two boxes. I put them both in her hands at the same time. I'm really sorry your wife is lying to you, said the bank manager, right? So Jennifer didn't want me to be able to see the bank account, right? So anyhow, having read this email where she's stolen 18,000 euros in an act of embezzlement, I called the bank manager and I say, look, I would like you to check the balance of the company, please. And she says, well, I don't have to check. And I said, why don't you have to check? I said, well, Jennifer was in here yesterday and she withdrew all the money out of the company. I cashed it. I did the transfer. She came to my office and she asked to see me, and she came to my office and she transferred the money. I said, really? And I acted like I didn't know, right? I acted like I didn't know this had happened. I said, really? Can you send me a copy of the check? And she says, sure. So she faxed me a copy of the check, right? So I take this and I go, what am I going to do with this? So I call up a company lawyer and say, what do you think I should do? And the company lawyer says, well, you just write it off because it'll cost you more than that to get it back. So I said, well, do you mind if I hire you guys to get this back? They said, well, it's going to cost you a lot of money. I said, no, I think it's worth it. So I hired a bunch of lawyers to get my 18,000 euros back. And they charged me 9,000 euros to get the 18,000 euros back, which never got paid, by the way. That 9,000 euros never got paid. So, you know, they sent Jennifer a letter with a copy of the cheque with her signature on it saying, believe you stole this money and you won't be eligible for citizenship. It's the crime of embezzlement. We recommend that you return the money so that when this goes to court, you'll be able to plea that you return the money, right? Because you have to be prosecuted for this, okay? And Jennifer's saying, I didn't steal the money. I'm entitled to it. It's like, no, you're not entitled to it. You stole it. It's a crime. It's embezzlement. And I'm obligated, as the other director, I'm obligated to report it to the police, to the company's commission, and they're obligated to prosecute you, right? You stole money. Doesn't matter. Even now, if you return it, you know, the argument will be, please go leniently on me because I returned it. Now, little did I know that women embezzling money is okay. I thought embezzling money was a crime, but it's not a crime if a woman does it, because all the relevant authorities were informed of this 18,000 euro embezzlement, and they refused to prosecute her because she's a woman, right? So you, young man, 16 to 30, you should know and understand that when a woman embezzles 18,000 euros from your company, that's not a crime because she's a woman. If you embezzle 18,000 euros from your company, that is a crime. You'll go to jail. But a woman won't, because it's not a crime when a woman does it, and we all know that, right? So all these women who are talking about this stuff, we all know that the women understand that it's not a crime when a woman does it. So this is 54 minutes, and I'm going to take another break in recording now, and I'll be back shortly. And welcome back. So now it's August 2007 in this story of my life, and I have access to my wife's email address, and she doesn't know that I have access to this. So I decide, what would be really interesting now is to troll her and see what she does to being trolled, see what her responses are to being trolled, right? So I thought I would troll her for a bit. No, I was never going to marry her again, never going to stay married to her, always going to divorce her. But I thought, I'll troll her and I'll slowly pretend like I'm having maybe a change of heart and see what she does, right? See what she says to other people while I'm trolling her, see what she says to me, and see what she's saying to other people while I'm trolling her. That would be really interesting to me, I decided in August 2007. So that's what I did. I started trolling her and pretending like there might be a chance, you know, if you're really, really good and you really, really say all these right things, there might be a chance that I would be with you again, that I would stay married to you. Are you interested? Blah, 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 blah. And of course, being a woman and not very intelligent, she fell for this, right? And hook, line and sinker. It was amazing. But anyhow, she was writing back to me about how much she loved me and wanted me and blah, 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 blah. You can't believe the crap that she was writing, right? But at the same time of lying to me like this, just blatant lying to me, she's still going along, doing her documentation for the lawyers in both Australia and Ireland and all the rest of it. So after a little bit I say, look, while we're having this discussion, I just want to make sure you're not talking to any lawyers, are you? He goes, of course not. I would not be talking to any lawyers and blah, 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 blah. And I'm reading her emails to her lawyers, right? And I'm sitting there reading these emails going, this woman is lying to me blatantly while I'm hanging out the bait of there's a possibility we could still be together. Even while I'm trolling her and doing that, she's lying to me blatantly. And of course, the other thing that really shocked me was the tone of the callousness of these emails to her solicitors. And to Susan, this old friend of mine, the girl that I first fell in love with, who was my first love and my best friend, and that we'd been good friends for 32 years. Even her emails to Susan were just cold and ruthless. They were just disgusting. And I'm watching all this. I'm like, this is what this woman is truly like. This is what she's truly like. She can write an email to me professing her endless, undying love and how she wants to be with me because she wants money from me. She wants the money that I'm earning now. And she wants it for the next 20 years. And on the flip side, she's writing to her lawyers and her friends in the most cold, heartless, ruthless of fashions. This is what this woman is like. I was shocked. I was truly, truly shocked. And Jennifer didn't figure out that I was reading her emails until January or February the next year. She had no idea that I was reading her emails. And she had no idea. I was sending them to myself. A lot of her emails that she wrote at that time, I forwarded to myself to keep. And I cut and pasted some of these emails and I put them into a book and I sent them to our children, my former children, when they turned 18. So my former children were given a book in which they see their mother on one side professing her undying love to me, and on the other side being a cold, ruthless, heartless, money-grubbing, gold-digging bitch. Really, the children have those letters. Okay, and even though they have those letters, the children say nothing in my support. Right? They are completely silent in my support. They got the letters. They know that this is what went on. And so when I talked with, so the deal was, I said to I talked to my solicitor and Jacqueline Vincent, as I said, and I talked about this agreement, etc. And Jacqueline says, well, you know that no court's going to back up that agreement. You know that they're going to give your wife a whole bunch of money, don't you? I went, yeah, but it's really irrelevant. I said, there's not that much money in the house because of her reckless spending. There's no money to be had, right? The only money in this marriage is the software, my skill, and the software that I wrote. That's the only money. That's the asset of the software is a way bigger asset than the asset of the house. And she can't get anything from the software without my consent, without my agreement, because nobody else can sell the software apart from me. We could say to her, yeah, here's a copy of the software, have it. And I did. I created a virtual machine. When she attacked me, I created a virtual machine, and I said to her lawyers, she can have a copy of the virtual machine as it is now. She can have a copy of the software as it is today. She can give it to whoever she likes to try and sell it. Good luck to her. That's equal, that's fair, right? The asset is the software. Okay? She wants half the asset, there's the software, go sell it. Go figure it out, go sell it. Go find someone who's going to try and understand that and sell it for you. Because the software is valueless without anybody willing to sell it. And, I'm the only person on the planet who can sell that software. Me and Sean Kelly were the only two people on the planet who could go and sell that software. And she's not entitled to labour to sell software to give her part of the proceeds. So I actually offered to give them a copy of the software and said, Jennifer wants money from the software. I will give her a copy of the software and she can get all the money out of it that she can. Good luck. And of course, that's not quite what Jennifer had in mind, right? So I said to Jacqueline Vincent, I said, look, there's a couple of $100,000 in the house. The house is worth, we figured it was worth $700,000, and we had a mortgage of bit over $200,000. So I said, look, there's maybe $500 $450,000 in the house, right? There's going to be expenses for selling it, etc., etc. So there's maybe $450,000, $500,000 in the house. And she said, yeah, maybe. He said, that's not very much asset after all these years. I went, nah, it's not. It's, her reckless spending didn't help, right? So Jacqueline's like, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, look, it's like this. We'll make the presumption that there's $500,000 in the house, just to make it round, right? We'll tell the other side, we will make the presumption the house will fetch $750,000, that there's $25,000 worth of expenses, and that there's $500,000 left. So we'll do the numbers based on the presumption of $500,000. But whatever is achieved under the $500,000, that's what the actual split will be based on. So we'll start at $500,000 and work it out like that. So she said that to the other side, and the other side says, yeah, okay, fine. And so this is in November, because this is October 2007, at the very height of the boom, very height of the stock market, before the 2008 crash, right? So we could have sold the house then, or I would have bought it out then at the market value, right? And she would have got the market value, and I would have got stuck with the crash, which nobody knew was coming, right? Or we could have sold it, and whoever bought it would have got whatever happened, right? So we worked it out, and so we said, okay, well, $250,000 each. And I said to, I asked Jacqueline, just put an amount in. The children are 16. I gave her the birth dates of the children. So I said, we will offer the maximum awardable child support for each child out of the asset of the house. So she put that in. And I said, and you have 5% negotiating flexibility. So you start with 50%. You say she can have 50% of the achieved sale value of the house, or she can, or Peter can buy out the house. She can get 50% of the buyout price from 3 evaluators. So the deal was, we will pay 3 different firms unrelated to come and value the house and take the average valuation of those 3 valuations as the value of the house, and I can buy it out, or we can sell it and we can get the achieved value. We knew the real estate agent in the area we bought it from. They're more than happy to sell it for us again, and we can do it either way, right? And so Jackie goes, up to 55% plus fully allowable child support for a woman who's refused to work and made this agreement. She's like, that's pretty generous. And I said, look, Jackie, the money's pretty much irrelevant. I said, she has to have some money to live on, right? So she's going to get what? $250,000. Yeah? She's going to get $250,000. And she hasn't worked for it, she hasn't earned it, but she's going to get it because that's what society says you should have to give a woman just because she marries you, right? That's the deal. And I said, $250,000, I'll get that back in a year, right? It'll only take me a year, maybe 2, to get that back. So it's irrelevant, right? That amount of money is not relevant to me. It's just like, okay, well, I understand your position. So, and it all added up to, it was about 67% split once he added a child support in. So I said, look, just start at 60%, whatever it is, and go up to 70%, 70-30, and we'll be on our way, right? It's not an issue. So all these women who say, lie about me online, like this Amy woman, young man, you should know that the offer on the table to my lawyer to negotiate with her lawyer, both of whom were female, was, give her up to 70% of whatever happens, because that money's not relevant to me, because I'm going to make my money out of my software, right? That's where I'm going to make my money. And she can't sell the software, so she's getting $250,000 and she didn't earn it. Such is life. That's what women are like today, and you young men need to know this. So Jackie goes, yeah, okay, and the other side comes back and says, no, that's not enough. And Jackie's like, what the hell does this woman mean? No, that's not enough. It's more than enough, right? So by this stage, Jennifer's still saying that she's not going to attack me in the Irish courts. And so in November, I decided to go back to Dublin to go to the courts to see if Jennifer has filed documents, because I've seen all this traffic between Jennifer and her Irish solicitor. I've seen all this traffic going backwards and forwards, all these documents, all these statements, etc., with Jennifer lying to me and denying that she's talking to a lawyer in Ireland, right? And I said to Jennifer, I don't believe you, right? Your word is worth nothing to me. Which part of your word is worth nothing to me don't you understand? Because you are asked to write down your word on a piece of paper and you refuse to do that. And the only reason you could possibly refuse to do that is that you don't intend to keep your word. So telling me, I promise you I'm not writing to a lawyer, telling me I promise you I'm not preparing documents, or I'm not going to attack you in the Irish courts, doesn't carry any weight with me, because you are a liar. Your word is not worth anything to me, right? And you just have to get over that, okay? And she was very upset when I would send her emails like that. Or she pretended to be very upset, right? And then she'd turn around and send an email to her lawyer saying, well, I don't really think Peter's believing that I'm not talking to you, right? This was all going on. It was hysterical that she was trying to get away with this. So anyway, I fly over to Dublin on the, I think it was like the 9th of November 2007, whatever that Saturday was, and I think it was the 9th or the 10th. It's a long time ago now, right? 7 years ago. You can look it up on a calendar. So we had dinner. I stayed in a hotel. I wasn't about to stay in the house and be accused of raping her, right? The next thing that it's going to be is a false rape allegation, right? So I was not willing to stay in the house because I was not willing to be subject to a false rape allegation, which is the next logical thing to come along. So I stayed in a hotel and I went to dinner at the house on the Saturday night. And on the Saturday night, Jennifer loudly protested to her children, this divorce is going to be amicable. I'm going to do the right thing. I'm just going to take some money and I'm just going to go. And Jared's sitting there going, Jared, her 26-year-old son, sat there and said, you are a selfish bitch. You don't deserve any of this man's money. Said, why do you think you should? Oh, I'm going to take some money and go. Why do you think you should get any money from this man? You haven't earned it. So even her own son sat there and said, you are a selfish bitch. It was very funny. And Sunday, I had dinner again at the house. And then on the Monday, I was going to go to the courts and check whether Jennifer had filed any documents in the courts, right? Because my solicitor, for some reason, wasn't able to do that. Apparently I had to check because I was a subject. I had not gone on record with the solicitor, so he was not representing me. So apparently even though he is a solicitor, if he's not representing me, he can't even be told if these documents were filed. So I went down to the courthouse on the Monday with a scheduled meeting with my solicitor should documents have been filed afterwards, like 5 or 6 o'clock afterwards. And so I get there and they say, yeah, we have a case record. These documents were filed on Friday. And I went, really? So on Friday, these documents were filed with this court? And the girl said, yes. She said, I can't tell you what they are. I said, well, can you tell me the address that they're going to be mailed to? She says, yes, we are going to send a copy of these documents to this address, which is the address that I was living at in Germany at the time. And so I said, okay, great. So this woman, you're telling me, you represent the court? She said, yeah. I said, you're telling me, and you're assuring me you're correct, that Jennifer Marguerite Nolan, living at this address, has filed divorce documents against me. Here's my passport. I live at this address. You're telling me this is true, right? You're not misleading me in any way. She goes, no, sir, absolutely. Documents are filed. I don't know what's in them. Nobody knows what's in them, and we wouldn't tell you. They have to be sent to you, and then you can read them. I said, fine, but this process has been started. She goes, yes, it's been started on Friday. I went, okay, great. Thank you very much for your thank you very much for your help. Went and met with my to-be solicitor, Pierce Neary, and I said, okay, well, she's filed documents. He goes, okay, well, we just ignore them. And I go, how's that? He goes, well, there's a procedure for filing documents on people who live abroad. They have to be delivered by a document server. So you just wait and see what she does, right? And I go, and if not following the procedure, I said, well, if they don't follow the procedure, you throw them in the garbage and you wait for them to follow the procedure, of course, right? So, okay, great. So I then went back to the house and I called a meeting with the 3 children who were there, because Kristen wasn't there, but Jared and the 2 younger children was there. And I said, your mother is a liar. Your mother stood here on the weekend and said this divorce will be amicable. She has filed documents in the Irish court, which I take as an act of aggression and an act of war. And I will not be talking to any of you until I'm treated with the respect that I have earned. I will not speak to any of you again until you sort out with your mother that I'm treated by this family with the respect that I have earned. And if that's never, that's never. Okay? And Jared went off the brain and he's like, how dare you do this? How dare you attack this man? And Joshua's sitting there and goes, you are greedy, Mum. Said, Peter's done nothing wrong with you, nothing wrong by you. He's worked hard all this time, and now you want to steal from him, and you want my father out of my life. He says, I don't want to lose my father from my life. This is what Joshua said. He was 14. I don't want my father out of my life. I want you and Dad have to sort this out. He's pointing his finger at her, saying, you and Dad have to sort this out. And so Joshua knew and understood what I was saying. I was saying, if I'm not treated with the respect I've earned, you, boy, are on your own. Right? You're 14, you're on your own. I want nothing to do with you. Until I'm treated with the respect I've earned, you don't get to have a father anymore. He understood exactly what I was saying. Right? Josephine, greedy little bitch that she is, taken after her mother, she actually said at this meeting, well, I don't care what you people do with each other, just as long as somebody pays my school fees. Right? I want to stay in Dublin and I need someone to pay my school fees, so I don't care who pays them. She actually said that. I don't care what's going on here as long as somebody pays my school fees. And I looked at her and I thought to myself, you selfish, greedy little bitch, that apple didn't fall far from the tree. Right? That was my response internally to what Josephine said. And Josephine has proven herself to have not fallen far from the tree, as did Kristen. Right? Kristen, this woman who so viciously attacked her mother every day she lived in the house. Of course, now her mother is playing victim. Her mother is lying. One of the interesting things about dealing with Kristen was because Jennifer lied to her so much, Kristen was on the phone with me one day, this is just an aside, and she was all upset and crying, etc., etc. And I'm saying, well, what's your problem? She said, well, my problem is my mother lies to me all the time. I said, yeah, I know, so what's your problem with that? She said, well, I don't like her lying to me. I said, well, get over it. She says, well, what do you mean? I said, look, Kristen, your mother is a liar. She lies to lots of people, right? Just lies all the time. That's what she does. Dogs bark, your mother lies. That's the nature of your mother. I said, you know, she's not going to be honest with you. She's never going to be honest. So you just have to get over the fact that she lies to you, right? She's still your mother. Get over the fact that she lies to you. There's nothing else to be done. And she's like, well, I don't like that. I said, well, I don't like it either, right? But your mother is a liar. Get over it. And so, you know, Kristen was crying and blah, blah, blah. And she comes out of the room she was in. She was at Jennifer's mother's house, her grandmother's house. And she comes out of the room that she was in. And of course, it's obviously to Irene that Kristen's been lying. And Irene says, what's wrong? And she says, well, I was just talking to Peter on the phone. So the next thing is that Irene's rigging Jennifer, talking to Jennifer saying, Peter made Kristen cry, because Kristen was on the phone to Peter and she was crying, and so Peter made Kristen cry. Like it's a crime to make a woman cry, right? And so Jennifer comes to me and starts hurling abuse and blah, blah, blah. Why did you make Kristen cry and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, who have you been talking to? She said, well, I've just been talking to my mother. I said, well, what did your mother just say? And she went through it. I said, oh, okay, so you know why Kristen was crying? You know what that was all about? Well, you made her cry because you were talking to her. I said, no, I didn't make her cry. You know what she was talking about? She's heartbroken and she's really angry and she's really upset that you keep lying to her, right? She's really, really upset that you are a liar and you keep lying to her. And what she was talking to me about was how heartbroken and how upset she is that you keep lying to her. That's what she's crying about. She's crying about the fact that you're a bad mother, and she's crying about the fact that you keep lying to her. And my advice to her was, your mother is a liar, dogs bark, your mother lies, same thing, and she just has to get over it. And that's what she's crying about. Now, are you going to ring your mother now? And are you going to tell your mother, well, it isn't actually Peter who made her cry. It's me by being a bad mother and lying to her and breaking her heart and having her distraught over my relationship with her. That's what she's really crying about. Are you going to ring your mother and tell her that now? Jennifer's like, of course not. She's not going to ring her mother and set her straight, right? Of course she's not going to do that. So anyhow, back to the story. Josephine didn't fall far from the tree. Kristen didn't fall far from the tree, right? So now the situation was, Jennifer attacked me in the courts. And the question was, well, what's in these documents that she's prepared for delivery and submitted on the 8th of November? What's in them, right? And what's in them is, of course, I'm an adulterer, I'm a wife beater, I'm a terrible, not a wife beater, I'm violent without actually the claim of any violence, right? I'm violent, but no accusation of actual violence, right? And the most laughable one is Peter tried to hit me with a wine bottle. And I'm like, really? On an affidavit, you're prepared to say, tried to hit you with a wine bottle? I'm 187 centimetres tall, 105 kilograms. For those of you in metric, that's 6'1" and been over 200 pounds, right? So I'm 6'1", over 200 pounds, 187 centimetres, 105 kilograms. Jennifer is 5'4", about 164 centimetres and about 70 kilograms. So I'm about 50% bigger than she is. Right? I'm roughly, when she's not fat, I'm 50% bigger than she is. And she's going to claim that I tried and somehow failed to hit her with a wine bottle. Really? I somehow tried and failed. Which is ludicrous, right? If a man came at me who was 50% bigger than I am and he wanted to hit me in the head with a wine bottle, I'd have a pretty tough time stopping him, right? And I'm a pretty strong man. Like if Andre the Giant, the similar comparison would be Andre the Giant came at me and tried to hit me with a wine bottle. What would be my chances of defending myself? They wouldn't be very good, right? Andre the Giant, like 7'2" and 25 stone. If Andre the Giant came at me and tried to hit me with a wine bottle, I wouldn't like my chances. Right? As much as I might try, I wouldn't like my chances. So her argument on an affidavit is that I somehow tried and failed. And her argument on an affidavit is that her two children, Kristen and Jared, stood by and let this happen. Right? Her argument is that I tried to hit her with a wine bottle, after which the police came, and her two children didn't say, by the way, he tried to hit her with a wine bottle. Right? Right? You get how ludicrous that is? And indeed, in that incident, Jennifer and I had to go to court because she made the allegation that I had been violent towards her, right? And that allegation had to be treated with had to be dealt with in court. And so we went to the court the next Friday. That was a Saturday night. We went to the court the next Friday, and she had to be put under oath in the court. And so she was put under oath. And so the magistrate said, "Did your husband try and hit you?" She said, "No." He said, "Was your husband violent towards you?" She said, "No." And he said, "Madam, many times when men are violent towards women and they come into the court, they say that they're not because they have to go back and live with the man." He said, I want to make sure that you're not one of those women, okay? And it's my job to make sure you're not one of those women who come in here, get put under oath, and then lie to me about the situation. I must have the truth, right? And so she said, "The truth is I lied on the telephone. The truth is that I lied to my husband. The truth is he was angry, and rightfully so. And the truth is I lied again to get the police to come to the house. I had no idea they were going to assault him and hurt him and lock him up. And this is all my fault. My husband's the perfect husband. He will take me back as long as I don't lie again. I'm the luckiest woman in the world to be taken back after lying and having him hurt and abused. And that's the truth. That's the truth of the matter." So the magistrate turned around to the lawyer and said, "Okay, you've had time to meet with these people and to talk with them. Do you believe that the woman is telling the truth in this situation?" And he said, "Absolutely. The woman lied. The woman called the police falsely. The man has done no wrong, and she's deeply repentant. She's deeply sorry, and he's giving her another chance because they have 2 small children. The woman lied, Your Honour. The man is an honest man, and the woman lied. And I'm satisfied with that as my clients. I think that's the position." And the magistrate said, "Okay, well, if you're under oath now, right? If you are saying that your husband was violent towards you, and he was not, and he was, and you're now saying he's not, you're committing the crime of perjury. Do you understand this?" And she said, "Yes, I'm not lying now. I was lying before, but I'm not lying now." This is the whole conversation in the court, right? And so, of course, 7 years later, or 10 years later, Jennifer's lying her head off again, saying, "Oh, my husband tried to hit me with a wine bottle in front of my 2 children. The police came around, but I didn't report that he tried to hit me with a wine bottle to the 2 police. My 2 children who were standing there didn't report that he tried to hit me with a wine bottle to the police. And in fact, I begged the police not to take him away, and I let him back into the house the next day, right? But he did try and hit me with a wine bottle, right? None of it's believable. And of course, it's just a joke that I tried to hit my wife with a wine bottle being 50% bigger. The police came, this is not reported. Went to a magistrate the next week and said, I was lying. It's not believable that her testimony is, my husband actually tried to hit me with a wine bottle and somehow failed, and somehow it wasn't reported or noted in any way, shape or form, right? None of that's believable. And none of it's believable that I was an adulteress. None of it's believable that I was a bad father. None of it's, our 26-year-old son is staying with us, but somehow Peter's a bad father. My 26-year-old son hasn't noticed that this man's a bad father. Kind of nothing in her statement was believable, right? And so, when I got these documents and they were full of lies, I was absolutely incensed because this is perjury. And I sent a copy to Bill, to her father and her 2 adult children. And I said, look at the lies your mother is telling about me. And these documents are published on the web, right? And so her lawyer came back and tried to get a motion to have me incarcerated for breaking what they call the in-camera rule and saying that I'm not allowed to give these documents to unrelated third parties. And I laughed and said, well, Jennifer is trying to call her father and her children unrelated third parties. By my definition, they're related, right? Further, I will give these documents to whoever I choose. And the in-camera rule, I don't care about the in-camera rule, right? And if you try and lock me up on some basis that you say that I can't present this perjury to other people, you try and do that. You just try and do that and see how that goes for you, right? And so I was having not a bar of that. So even though Jennifer was offered, right, for you young man, and for all the women who tell lies about me, you young man, you should know the truth is, even though Jennifer was offered up to 70% of proceeds to just shut up and go away, that wasn't enough. Inside these documents, which included perjury and slander about me, was the demand that A, the house should be transferred to her name, so she wanted 100% of the house. B, that I should be required to continue to pay any shortfall from the mortgage, given any shortfall from the rent of the tenants. And C, she should get 50% of any future software revenue. So her position was, not only should I get 70% of the assets of the marriage that I didn't earn, one, I didn't earn, two, that I had waived by my 2002 agreement, which I'm now lying about, not honouring, I should also get the other 30%, and I should get 50% of software revenues out into the future. That's what's in the documents. And there's no arguing that that's what's in the documents, because that's what's in the documents. And they're published for anybody to read. And so I sent those to her father and her two adult children and said, what do you think about this? Now, because Jared and Kristen weren't willing to respond, right? These are two children that I'd clothed and I'd fed and I'd educated and I'd put a roof over their head. They didn't even have a word to say about all this, right? And so I said to Bill, you need to sort this out, Bill. This is your daughter. You sort it out. And this is an act of aggression. This is an act of war. I consider Jennifer initiating conflict against me, initiating a war against me. And I can tell you, Bill, I'm going to win this war. This is not going to go well for Jennifer. And he's like, yes, I can understand, and blah, blah, blah. And then I said to him, look, you need to go get her to withdraw all this. She is going to be charged with perjury. I am going to prosecute her for the perjury, right? There's no reason for her to commit perjury, and there's no excuse for her to be committing perjury. She's going to be prosecuted for that. He goes, yep, she committed perjury. She should be prosecuted. So that's the real backstory. Okay, young man, that's the real backstory. All these women who say, 95% of the house, sure, that's okay, right? Because the kiddies need somewhere to live. It's always for the kiddies, right? It's never for the woman. It's not the house for the woman that she's going to have after the kids leave. It's not money for the woman she's going to have after the kids leave home. It's always for the kiddies. But the money actually goes to the woman. The kiddies are not responsible enough and old enough to spend the money rightly. So, the mother's just custodian of these things, but it's for the kids, right? The kids don't need 100% of the house. The kids don't need 50% of the future software revenue. That's not for the kids at all, right? And we all know that. But you go and talk to women about this, and you'll find that none of them oppose it. None of them object to it. It's all perfectly okay. And you, young man, need to understand, very, very, very well advised to understand, that this is how women think about you. Now, you may go and ask women about this, right? How do you think about me? Would this be fair in my case? And they'll say, no, we would never support that. We're not in your case. We would never support that. And you know what that is, right? That's pathological lying. The question you should be asking is, do you support it in this man's case? Because if you support it in this man's case, I know you'll support it in my case. You women, my peers, so if you're 16 to 30, you need to be talking to your peers and saying, you need to not support it in this man's case and make sure this woman is prosecuted, and you need to stand up in public in your own name and demand this woman is prosecuted and this man is compensated, because if you don't do it in this case, I'm going to think to myself, you will do it in my case. And that's the conversation you should be having. And that's true, right? If women will not condemn Jennifer in her case, given my willingness to stand up and be a bit of a lightning rod, given my willingness to publish family court documents when threatened with jail for doing so, given my willingness for video recording a family court matter, given my willingness to do all this, which, by the way, no other man in the world has had the guts to do, given my willingness to do all this, You should be asking women, hey, what's your take on this case? All the documentation's presented. It's been 7 years. No women are protesting this man's innocence. No women are demanding this woman be found guilty and prosecuted. No women are demanding this man be compensated for the vast losses that he's suffered. You young men should be asking that question. And if you don't ask the question, if you don't put the pressure, put the screws on your women peers who are your age, if you don't do that, then you can have absolutely no complaint when you're next. When you're the next screwed over in divorce, when you're the next false rape allegation, when you're the next false DV allegation, you can't have any complaints if you're not challenging the women to deal with my case in public, standing up in your own name and saying, I demand the women that I know deal with this case. If you're not doing that, then you can have no complaint when you're the next case, right? That's how these things work. So, that's the whole backstory. The backstory is that my female family law lawyer said this is a more than generous offer. When I told Bill that I'd offered Jennifer $250,000 just to shut up and go away because she's a complete bitch and she'd been a terrible wife to me for the entire time she'd been a wife to me, when I told Bill that, her father, he said, thank you very much, Peter. I understand what you've been through. That is a more than generous offer. He said, in fact, it's more money than I've retired on. That you're giving my daughter more money than I retired on after 40 years of work. So, I can't possibly criticize you for that, right? That was a conversation with her father. Okay? So you as a young man should understand that my female family law lawyer and her father both agreed that what was offered to her was more than generous, and that Jennifer was such a greedy, nasty, selfish bitch that she decided to tell lies about me and use her children as weapons against their father, use her children as weapons against their ill and elderly grandmother slipping into dementia. I'll tell you that story just in a second. But use her children as weapons against their grandmother, their sick and elderly grandmother. That's what Jennifer did, okay? And women defend this behaviour. Women defend this behaviour. Not only do they defend it, they blame me for her behaviour. The ultimate in not taking responsibility, the ultimate in not being equal is not being responsible, right? Women blame me for her disgusting and disgraceful behaviour, like she's a child who's not responsible for her own behaviour. So that's what these women will lie about. That's what these women will say. And this video and this podcast sets the record straight verbally. All the documentation's been released for years, but people are not willing to read documentation. So this sets a record straight verbally. Now, what I mentioned about using her children as weapons against their elderly and ill grandmother, my mother in February 2008 was sliding into dementia, and she knew she was sliding into dementia, right? She had come to terms with it by this time. She wasn't happy about it, but she'd come to terms with it. And Jennifer decided that she was going to deny my mother, an elderly, ill, sliding into dementia grandmother, right? She was going to deny my mother the ability to talk to her grandchildren in order to get money from me. And that decision by Jennifer was backed up by Bill, her father, by Irene, her mother, and I might add, it was backed up by Josephine and Joshua. Because Josephine and Joshua both had mobile phones, obviously knew my email address, obviously had their own mobile phones, and obviously had the ability to send me a text and say, Dad, this is our phone number at home. Grandma can call any time, right? We'll talk to Grandma. Josephine and Joshua had the ability to do that, and they were old enough to do it, and they didn't, right? Neither of them did that. Obviously, also, Josephine and Joshua knew the telephone number my father, right? They had rung my parents many times. They knew the phone number, right? And the phone number was in the phone book. And everybody in the family knows the number of my parents. So Bill and Irene chose to agree and support Jennifer using her children as weapons against her grandmother. And all the other women agree with this. All the other women think that's absolutely fine and dandy. So you, young man, you should know these things. This is the truth. All I'm telling you is the truth. Okay? What you do with the truth is really up to you. But when a woman comes to you and says, oh, I'm not a woman like that, I would never do that, right? Don't believe a word they say. Truly, just don't believe a word they say. Don't ask them to prove anything. Don't ask them to do anything. Just say, yeah, that's what you say. I don't believe you. You have no credibility around here. You have no credibility with me. And they say, but, unless I personally lie to you, you should accept my credibility. That's what the women will argue with you. And you can argue this point if you want, it's pointless, but you can say, well, when a woman walks into a bar and some man in the bar says, hi, sweetheart, can I buy you a drink? Does that woman trust that man? Does she believe what he says? Or is she... or does she take the position that the man has to earn her trust? Now we all know, you young man, you know that if you're sitting in a bar and you're having a drink and some woman walks in and you fancy her and you wave her over and say, hi sweetheart, can I buy you a drink? You know that at that point in time, she does not trust you. She does not believe what you are going to say, right? She's going to treat you with a certain amount of incredulity. She's not going to believe what you say. You know that, young man, right? Okay, we all know this is how women treat men who say, can I buy you a drink at a bar? They don't believe a word you say, right? So, being equal, it's not incumbent on you, young man, to believe what a woman says until she proves that she's a liar. That's not incumbent on you, any more than it's incumbent on a woman to believe what you say until you prove that you're honest. It is incumbent on a woman to earn your trust. And the way she earns your trust is by her actions. So when a woman comes up to you and says, you can't disbelieve me because I've never done anything wrong by you, that's the exact same argument as a man approaching a woman in a bar or similar, saying, you have to believe what I tell you until you catch me in a lie. And because women don't do that, right? We all know that. So, my advice to young men, the single most important piece of advice that will very likely, very possibly save your life as a young man today in the West, the piece of advice I would give you that is most likely to save your life is never believe what a woman says to you. Just not ever. They will make arguments. They will call it misogyny. They will say whatever they want to say. But if you want to never be in the position of being taken advantage of by a woman, the simple rule to follow is just never believe anything that they say. Just never do it. Never for the rest of... I would recommend you never for the rest of your life ever believe anything a woman tells you ever again. That's the single most important lesson I've learned since I was 44. Right? The single most important lesson I've learned through my whole divorce process and observing women since then is you cannot believe anything they tell you. And most of the time you'll be right. Sure, some women will tell you something true occasionally. It's 9:10. Hey, that happens to be true. The sky is blue. That happens to be true, right? So what? Really, so what? They do say some things that are true, but so what? Okay, so that's the most important lesson. And you've now got the record straight. These were the offers that I made to this woman. This woman, my former wife, Jennifer Toll, this woman agreed in April 2002 to live on her half of the house. That's what she agreed. By November 2007, she didn't have any of that asset left in particular. She was offered, despite all that, she was offered $250,000 just to shut up and go away. Let's smile and say irreconcilable differences and go on our way, because why do I say that? Because I'm going to make a stack of money out of my software, and I don't really care what you say, what you do, right? Oh, the other thing that I will say to set the record straight, right, is on the Saturday night of the family meeting, I put it to the children that their mother had been a terrible mother, which Jared backed up, by the way, that their mother had been a bad mother and had injured them quite significantly, even though they were not really aware of it, and that I proposed that I stop travelling for a while, take some of the assets of my part of the house to pay for the rent of the place we were living in. So I said, I'll stop travelling, I will come here, I will live here, so you don't need to move, you stay in your own room, stay in your schools, no disruption to your life. Mum can take her money, and I told the kids it's about $250,000. Your mother is going to get about $250,000. She can take her money, she can get a small apartment nearby, she'll be able to get a job because we'll no longer be married, she'll be able to apply for a job. She can come and go from this house as she pleases, right? You can come and go to her house as you please, except I'm the boss, right? I'm the boss. If I have to put my foot down on something, you are my children and you will do what I tell you to do. And you will do that until your 18th birthday. And your mother is no longer your boss, over and above what I say. Where your mother and I agree, you will do what I tell you and do what she tells you. But where your mother and I disagree, you will do what I tell you to do until you're the age of 18. I'm your boss. And both children were very excited at this prospect. Said, by the way, I won't ask your mother for any child support. I'll pay for you. I will support you. I'll pay for everything that you need until the day that you're 18 years old, or finish school that time. Once you finish school at 18, then you're going to have to get a job, just like I did. Okay? And the kids were very enthusiastic about that. And they're saying, they're saying, Mum, that's perfect. You can come and go, You don't have to have a fight. You don't have to have a conflict. You get your money. You don't have to pay anything for us. This is perfect, said the kids, right? And of course, Jennifer was absolutely irate. You could see the seething anger under the surface that her children, there was, in her mind, in Jennifer's mind, of course, there's doubt that they're my children, right? But in her, of course, there's no doubt they're her children. Mother's baby, father's maybe, sort of thing. The seething anger, the fury that was right under the surface when her own children were saying, we'd rather live with Dad. We'd rather live with Dad. Okay? That sounds like a really good deal to us. We want to do this. We want to live with Dad. Oh, wow. She was angry at that. She was really, really, really angry with that. And of course, that was all part of using the children as weapons against me to try and alienate the children from their father. Excuse me. By using them as weapons to try and alienate them from me, she was going to create emotional dependence of the children on her. So the children now only have a mother in their life. They don't have a father. And she's created this emotional dependence on them so that she'll be able to control and manipulate those children for the rest of their life. And you know what? That is exactly what those children deserve. Okay? That's exactly what those children deserve. They deserve to have an absolute horrible bitch of a mother for their mother who uses them and abuses them and manipulates them. They deserve that. In spades they deserve it. Okay? That's exactly what Kristen deserves. Kristen complained to me about how her mother lied to her, complained to me about how her mother was abusive to her, and then supports her mother's lies and abuse of me. Talk about instant karma. It's just fantastic. So those 4 children absolutely deserve the mother that they've got, and they absolutely deserve no father in their life. Absolutely deserve it. They didn't value having a father in their life, so they shouldn't have one, right? And then they have nothing to complain about. We used to have this saying when I was a kid. My mother used to say, if you're not careful, you'll have nothing to complain about. I remember one time I complained about my dinner, and my mother said, you don't like this? And I said, no. So she took my dinner and she divided it amongst my brothers and put the empty plate back in front of me and said, now you have nothing to complain about. And I went, I don't have any dinner. She said, yeah, now you don't have any dinner. You have nothing to complain about. You can complain about having nothing. Right? And I went, oh, okay. And I went to bed hungry that night. And, then I got my breakfast in the morning. But my mother made it clear, you complain about what it is that you've got. Be careful because you might have nothing to complain about. Okay? That's one of the times. I was only about 6 years old when she did that. I was like, oh, I could have nothing to complain about. I don't want nothing to complain about. I want something to complain about. Maybe I should not complain at all, right? And of course, that's what my mother was teaching me. Maybe you shouldn't complain about your dinner because you might not have one. And plenty of people don't have a dinner, or a nice dinner on the table at night. So, the Jennifer's former children have, with respect to a father, have nothing to complain about. Right? They can't complain that I'm a good, bad, or otherwise father. They don't have a father, so they have nothing to complain about. And they can complain about not having a father. That's fine. Complain all they like. See where that gets them, right? So this has been a fairly epic story of my life. It's been a long episode. And naturally, if you're still listening to this, then you've listened to it in parts. But, what I wanted to do with this story of my life was simply put it out there verbally, not in writing, because this would obviously take 2 days to write down, but put it out there verbally. Any woman who wants to argue about the point, I'll just give them a link and say, go listen to this, and I don't believe anything you say. You have no credibility. You're a pathological liar and a hypocrite. You support perjury, and here's the proof. Go listen to this. Okay, not talking to you anymore. What we're now doing is talking to the young men, saying, "This is what women are like, right? This is what your peers are like. This is how your life is going to go. That's what we're going to do from now on, right?" So with that and this epic long story of my life, I'd like to say for those, probably 2 of you who listened, thank you very much for listening. And I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was funny enough to be a little bit entertaining. Thanks very much for listening.